Hello and welcome to Money Lap Live. I'm Parker Kligerman, and as always, I will be joined by Landon Cassill. But before we do that, a little explanation of what we're doing here. So this is our podcast about all motorsports. We talk about it all around the motorsports world, but now we're going to do it live here, a real U.S. motorsports show. And from now until December 13th, we'll have guests from around the motorsports world. F1, NASCAR, IndyCar, sports cars, short tracks, dirt, motorcycles, if we can find someone for that. If you have someone and you want them here, let us know. We're going to get them on this show over the next 5 weeks. And for our podcast listeners, we know that this is a bit visual. We will do our best to try and describe the visuals that we're seeing, because there will be videos and explanations and photos and that sort of thing. But of course, we're going to screw it up. Anyway, we have no idea what we're doing, but that's the fun of it all. It's Money Lap Live. Let's do this. All right. I said you'd be here, Landon. From the couch in Iowa. Can we call it Castle's couch? I don't know. I just like it.
Yeah, I'm here. That's close to calling it something else, but Castle's couch it is.
I wasn't going to make the reference. I was going to let it be insinuated, but yeah, we do. That's close for sure. Are we insane, by the way?
We are insane. In order to get this shot that you wanted, I have to set up my camera far enough away.
You have no idea what's going on in your camera right now. Where do you get these effects?
What just happened?
For the podcast listeners, Landon Cassill, you may remember, had some balloons happen on his camera one time. Now we've had fireworks and a thumbs up.
Did that?
What is going on?
What was that?
I don't know. Your computer just does weird stuff.
Well, anyways, here we are. We're at the Castle couch.
Yeah.
We need to figure out where these special effects come from. I'm not joking. Now we've used multiple different broadcasting platforms, and it still happens. So it's something to do on my computer. But
I think it's fun. You never know when
I've got my screen far enough away from me that I've had to wear glasses. Oh gosh, it's doing the effects again.
It's got to be something you're doing.
I think it is. It's gesture related. If I just do a thumbs up like that, if I go like this, does it have to do with my MacBook?
Like I said, if you're listening on the podcast, Landon is trying to make these gestures happen, but it's not working. Hey, I want to say, all right, so we go through 40 plus weeks of the NASCAR world, all the motorsports, right? F1's still going on. NASCAR just ended, so we're going to have guests from the NASCAR world, in terms even the Xfinity Series champion, Cole Custer, who he and I had some run-ins this year, so that'll be fun to discuss. And I think I handed him his first win of the year. But we'll have Carson Hocevar. We'll have Blake Hensley, who's a former Red Bull F1 engineer, who will come on here and talk about the technical side of F1 in Vegas. It's the biggest event happening. And I say we're insane because we just signed ourselves up for 5 more weeks of talking about motorsports when the season is finally done after 40-some weeks.
Yeah, but we wanted to make it a little more special and unique than just continuing the podcast as normal. We wanted to be able to take the time because we don't have upcoming races to go over. I can imagine that the motorsports fan base is probably a little bit racing exhausted, which I know I can be that way. Maybe the true fans, the real fans out there aren't. They need more racing. But we wanted to take this end of the season to just talk, just shoot the shit, I guess.
Yeah.
And talk all types of racing. If we decide we want to go really in depth into a topic, we've got the time to do it. If we've got the time to go get some guests that don't have racing obligations or an upcoming race. So we're going to be talking to a lot of really cool people. Obviously Parker, had mentioned a couple of them that are going to come on board on just this episode. We've got more coming in the future. But it's really just kind of laid back, a live show. We've done live shows before with streaming, with eRacer, with our broadcast, but we've never done a live sit down, podcast. So think of this as your power lunch, I guess, for over the next month or so.
In no way is it owned by that certain network that company I also, or affiliated anyway. So we mentioned NASCAR's over. We're going to talk a lot of NASCAR over the next hour and a half, forever. Reminder, this is from 12 to 3. So we're here for 3 hours. This is going to be a lot of chat, a lot of stuff happening out there in the motorsports world we're going to dive into. There's actually a ton of news out there and such. But the biggest thing happening right now, Landon, and this leads into our first guest in a little bit, is obviously Formula One is in Las Vegas for this street race around the strip. There's so many things to unpack here. But first and foremost, we'll talk the racing and the racetrack with Blake Hensley, who's also known as Brrrake, the F1 content creator. But what I want to dive into is the outside the racetrack right now. I don't know. I've been sending you some things, and holy shit. Sorry, pardon my language. This is insane. the American Express Center. This was F1. This was Red Bull's livery revealed for you Americans. It's paint scheme, obviously. Within the club at MGM, the car is coming down from the sky. What is happening? What in the world? This is like Driven, the famous racing documentary about the kart world. This is what they imagined. Yeah, I'm making a joke. This is what you imagined what racing would be like when you grew up as a kid, and now we're seeing just like this as much enthusiasm about a paint scheme reveal as Red Bull did here at the MGM, which is insane.
My first thought on when I see this is always, how much did that cost? So, and
more than we have.
I always think of that stuff because we, in NASCAR, even closer down to Xfinity racing, when we get a sponsor on board, it's always like, here's the price to be on the car and the race. And then if you want to do a little activation, it's going to be a little bit more than that. We could take a show car to your
a show car
store. Yeah, we could bring a show car out and do a display. Or if you want to do some hospitality, we can get a suite, or we could feed your guests out at the back of the hauler. It might cost an extra couple $1,000s to feed that many people. Or
slick meat.
Could
you get slick meat in there?
We could suspend your car down from the stage at the MGM with pyro optic LED lights and smoke machines, and we could hire Diplo to be the DJ, and that's going to be another $1 million.
Oh, your computer liked that. We got another thumbs up from your computer screen.
We have no idea what these effects is going on.
So that one's insane. One guest we didn't mention that's coming on later in the show is Jeff Gluck. He's on the ground in Las Vegas for the Athletic with our buddy Jordan Bianchi. They're going to give us like a man on the ground description of what's happening there. But I saw on his social media, he was at a Mercedes thing last night. They rent out this area, I guess, offshoot of the strip, where they had the cars coming down a runway. And I don't know if we got this video or not. They got the cars coming down the runway with drones around them. And then the drones like surround, it's like a crazy light show. And then who gets out of the cars, these road car Mercedes? It's Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. American Express, Landon, brought a literal hotel to this event. I don't know if you've seen this. It's 3 or 4 levels of hospitality. When you talk about costs, like, yeah, hey, normally we build a sponsorship package. It's like, hey, we got the race, and then you got my PSA as a driver, whatever. And then we got this activation budget. Their activation budget on this race has to surpass, for some of these sponsors, what they've spent on an actual F1 race. Just the actual full racing side for some of these teams, because this is just, it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
I would say Red Bull, I mean, that display alone is a couple $100,000. Just the planning around it. That goes to show the bet that they're making on this event.
It's supposed to be 10 years.
Which I know we're going to, we'll get into here with Blake and his opinion. I'm anxious to see his opinions to hear his opinions on the American F1, the American impact on F1, obviously leading up to now, but then I don't even think we have to ask, has it peaked? We know it's peaked. The question is, where does it settle out at? right?
Yep. So we do have some video from a year ago when this race was a year ago, or maybe a little more, that this race got like announced, or I can't remember why we were discussing it when we did. It was March 22nd, 2022. I'm being told. Okay. This is some video where our producer Josh and our buddy AJ Henderson and I used to record some fun discussions around E-Racer, and this was my opinion on what I felt like was the future of the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Before there was much information. I want that to be out there as well. I think we got that. If we can put that up, Zach.
Do you think the Las Vegas Grand Prix will be a crown jewel race
for Formula One?
Could be.
Do you? And maybe not to Monaco level, but like
no.
You don't think so?
Miami will be, not that. No.
What?
Really? Oh, okay. That is a horrible take.
Who the fuck is this guy?
You think the parking lot of the Hard Rock freaking football stadium's more impressive than driving down the Las Vegas Strip in a
Miami?
Wow.
I
Okay.
think Miami will be one of the highest grossing Formula One races in history.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I bet it'd be really gross. It'll gross a lots of money if they're putting in a stupid
I think
football
it will be
parking
exactly
lot.
like Monaco, and if they do it right, it'll be like Monaco.
All
So,
right. Obviously, we need
First
to
of all-
replace Parker Kligerman. He is.
Parker has this thing against Vegas. I don't know why.
we're
He went to
still going.
Vegas. He hates going to
love
Vegas every time
I
he goes
hate
to Vegas.
My life brings me to Vegas all the time, and Vegas is fun. It's too much fun. It's too much things you can't say no to. And it's
I
just,
think you enjoy Vegas so much that you contemplate staying every time you go, and that conflicts with you internally. That's because
All
you
right,
love
this
it so much.
Zach, we
Oh
can
my
shut this
God.
off now. We shut this off. So you get the point here. Now I want your opinion on this, and then once we get past it, I got one thing to say about this. Then we'll eventually bring on
Okay.
our buddy Blake here. But what is your thoughts on what I had to say there? Was I wrong?
First of all, I mean, what a perfect All-American example of just some guys being dudes. Just guys being dudes, hanging out, talking about F1.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm proud of it. I don't so you don't think you're snubbing the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Always have.
So I wasn't at that time because I've seen the massive undertaking. Now you've seen some of the stuff out there about the ticket prices coming down, the hotel prices. We know it's for real because I looked at it. We looked at going for a second, but after 40 plus weeks of racetracks, it had to be a really compelling reason to be there. The thing to me though, where I'm gonna be right, is this is before we knew that they were starting this race 10 p.m. on the East Coast, 1 a.m. basically or 10 p.m. on the West Coast, almost 1 a.m. on the East Coast, basically, is when this race is going to start. The highest rated F1 race of all time in America on TV was the Miami Grand Prix. This won't even get close. There's no way. No way at 1 a.m. on the Eastern Seaboard are you going to get the viewership that the Miami GP had. So gross income, probably not. But terms of viewers and amount of people that are going to interact with it, am I wrong? Or is that the antiquated way and we should be talking about the social media? So we'll see.
I think it's a little. I think you're. I don't know. I think that you're being a little short-sighted on it. I think that where I agree with you is I think that there's definitely some short-term. I don't agree with the decisions they've made. I think that they started out hyping this event, and I don't know who they is. They could be the organizers of F1, or they could be the hotel operators and the media, that hype this event, the ticket sales, and all that stuff. Who knows? But what I'm saying is, I think this started out riding on the hype of Miami, crazy ticket prices, exclusive event.
Yep.
So you saw all these insane packages, and I think that there was maybe a pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered type thing, where Vegas tried to just compound on top of Miami and say, oh, well, we've got $1 million ticket packages, and the hotels are charging out the wazoo and, like a bunch of insanity that's just wasn't realistic. And then also I think the race start time is stupid. I don't know. I'd love to kind of be a little bit more logical about that, so we could talk about the start time instead of me just saying that it's stupid. But obviously them going for a 10 p.m. start, 1 a.m. Eastern time. Where does that put the start time in Europe? Because that must have been their goal.
Yeah, it's around the morning in England, that sort of thing. So
it's what time?
It's more
in
like
England?
what we have. Yeah, it's like a 7 a.m. start time, I want to say, in England, so on and so forth. So it's an odd time. It's a really awkward time, for sure.
So what would it look like if they had an 11 a.m. start time in Vegas?
I think the point is Vegas looks beautiful at night. It doesn't look so beautiful in the daytime.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times you've walked out of those hotels in the morning and looked around and gone, ooh, this is what this place looks like? My goodness. Like, ooh, this looks like a little bit beat up. Hey, we're going to have our first guest
So hang on
the Money Lap.
Hang on, I didn't think of my...
I'm going to cut you off. I'm cutting you off. We'll get back to
I didn't finish my thought, though, but we got a guest.
No, we got a guest. And we're going to dive into the technical side because there's a lot of actual cool technical things with this racetrack and this race. So without further ado, I want to bring on Brrrake Hensley. He's an F1 content creator, a former F1 Red Bull engineer. Very excited about having him here on the Money Lap Live. I'm a big fan of his content throughout the motorsports or F1 in terms of the podcast and the clips. Very informational. Blake, for those that don't know your background, just sort of how you ended up as an engineer in F1 and what you're up to now would be great. And then we can dive deep in this F1 Vegas stuff and all the things we want to dive into there. Oh, we got technical infraction. Technical infraction. Try your reconnect. We've been learning this system on the fly.
Oh, yeah, you got to reconnect. If you change your mic, you got to reconnect.
There we go.
Hey, there we go. Reconnect, classic, reboot. Doesn't work. So
Love it.
Yeah, somehow I ended up leaving Texas when I was 25, and I haven't looked back, and I've been stuck over in England for the past, 12 years. Got involved in Formula One as a performance engineer pretty much straight after joining the industry. I worked at Force India for 3 years, working with Perez, Checo, and Paul di Resta, and then I moved to Red Bull to be Sebastian's performance engineer, and then he decided he wanted to go to Ferrari because I was joining or something like that. So I ended up working with Daniil Kvyat and Max Verstappen for a bit, and then I kind of you mentioned in the intro a little bit of racing fatigue. You guys have that a lot harder than F1 though, but I think also there's something about the calendars being all over the place, double triple headers, flyaways. I mean, Vegas is a back-to-back race with Abu Dhabi. What the actual heck is that? Like that's actual chaos. So
one desert area to another, basically.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
What is the road crew like in NASCAR? We have the road crew, right, and we have the shop guys. What is the road crew schedule like between Abu Dhabi and Vegas? I think how many people are going on the road, and what's their schedule? Going to Abu Dhabi, coming from Abu Dhabi, where do they go after that, and then when do they come to the U.S.?
So there's a big load of stuff. There's people that they call them truckies in Europe in Formula One, the truckies. And those will be the guys that they used to drive the trucks, but hardly any of them drive trucks anymore. They'll be out there setting up the garages, electrical, IT, all that stuff that goes into that every weekend. And then a lot of teams, those guys will fly back, and the race mechanics and everybody else will run up to the event. And the cars will be arriving in a relatively prepared state, depending on if it's a flyover or not. The guys will build the cars up. The engineers will show up on, I think, Thursday. They'll go through all the setup, patching, checking notes, driver fit, setup sheets, and all that. Legality patch checking, all the suspension and bodywork is in compliance. And then they go racing on Friday. And then for engineers, you're out of there usually Sunday night if it's a European race, or Monday morning if it's a flyaway, and you're straight back in the office right after that, or in transit to the next place. So it's I think the most I ever did was 21 races in a season, and that was exhausting. But you guys on 40 weekends or something, you guys are nuts.
Well, so do they race or do they fly private or commercial, or how's the
commercial?
Really?
Almost
Okay,
always,
so even for the
everybody's
short,
commercial. Yep.
even for the short flights around Europe, there's no private flights.
Nope.
Interesting.
During COVID, they would charter flights, and then if there's some places that are not particularly popular, they will, charter a plane for several teams. But for the most part, you're always flying commercial in F1, which is a bit of drag.
And let's real quick on that point. So, bring it back to this upcoming Vegas F1 race. We were talking about the timing of it all. Well, practice is at like 1 a.m. or something as well. And so I saw a wonderful tweet from Will Buxton that was like dealing with the the time change and the jet lag. And someone said, "How do you do it?" And he said, "I do 9 months of hell, and then I get sick. I get the flu, and then my family shows up for Christmas." I was like,
honestly,
if that doesn't describe the grind of, by the way, I literally just woke up last night and I'm sick. So, and we just ended our season a week ago. So like, it's just such a good time. It's the way this goes. But for you, having worked there, like what are these crew guys going to go through with the timing of all this? I mean, they're going to be there till 4 a.m., 5 a.m. some nights.
It's the trick. The only race I can speak to that was like this is when we do Singapore. And the trick was Friday night. I think you'd be leaving the circuit at something like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And if it was a late one, you're kind of like, oh no. Everybody's aim was like, get back to the hotel before the sun comes up, because if you see the sunlight, you're going to be completely screwed for the next day and you won't be able to sleep. So you see people walking back at 5 o'clock in the morning from the racetrack to their hotels that are like a 15-minute walk away in sunglasses. I'm like, you guys are weird, but it makes sense. It totally makes sense when you get done over by seeing the sunlight and you can't sleep, and then you've got free practice 3 and qualifying on Saturday and you're nowhere. It's like, what happened? Oh, I saw the sun last night. Oh.
So let me. I want to talk more about the Las Vegas GP here in a little bit. But tell me what a performance engineer is in Formula One. That title. What does that title mean?
So I think in a lot of other series, like sports cars in the U.S. and probably IndyCar and NASCAR, you might have a data engineer or performance engineer is what they'd call it. But I think in F1, it's probably quite similar to IndyCar as well. You'll have an engineer that's focused on the detailed performance characteristics of the car and the driver's performance, and you are working directly with the race engineer to optimize a single car. So when I was at the track, I worked on one car at a time, and I'd collaborate with the other car in between sessions, but during the session my focus was Max or Danny's performance, the car's performance, and looking at everything from fuel management, tire, to an extent brakes performance and brakes management in terms of the tools like the brake-by-wire system and all of that, the differential settings. Those were all in my wheelhouse, as well as driver performance, looking at the driver versus his teammate, offering advice during practice sessions, qualifying, working with him after the session, and then during the session helping the race engineer focus on car operation, traffic management, and communicating with the driver, and strategic things and tire management.
And does the driver have a dedicated either driver coach or driver performance engineer that you work with, or is it sort of the engineers of the team? Yeah, I would say you're not the only performance engineer in the garage, right, for that one team. So how do you filter that, who the priority engineer is that communicates with the driver when it comes to driver stuff?
That's an interesting one. I think so. In a lot of series, you will have a driver coach, and that person is always coordinating with the driver from that point of view. But I think a couple of teams have a driver performance coach in F1, but it's really, really not that common. And I'm kind of some of them. I'm a little bit skeptical of the arrangement, considering usually very few of them have driven F1, and they haven't driven open wheel cars in a very, very long time. So it's like, that's an interesting arrangement. But for the most part, I would talk to the race engineer about things. He would talk to me about things, and we would come up with an arrangement or a system of how we communicated to the driver with performance. Because maybe the race engineer was busy going through ballast and setup sheets, and he's like, hey, can you walk Max through those laps that you showed me earlier, and just show him what he's doing relative to his teammate, or where he's maybe leaving some time on the board, or walk him through the tire prep on that and how we can optimize that for qualifying in 30 minutes kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny in NASCAR, you have that age old conversation between the driver and his engineers, or the driver and the crew chief, which is like, hey, you need to carry more min speed, or we need to, I'll even use real NASCAR terminology. It's like, hey, we need to roll the middle faster. You need to pick up the throttle sooner. we need you to get to wide open throttle
man.
sooner.
Come on, why don't you go drive it?
Usually that's a really good way to get the driver to cuss you out.
Yeah, it's like
it also
my
became
favorite
slightly...
one is my favorite saying is, the car's going as fast as it can. It's like, that's very interesting because your teammate's about 3 miles an hour faster through that corner. So if you'd like to try again, please go for it.
Right.
That's the worst thing you could say. So for the driver coaching, in IndyCar, you mentioned it, that actually has become very prevalent. Teams have their own driver coaches. Drivers now have their own coaches. I think in NASCAR, we're very close to driver coaching becoming almost an individualized thing per driver. Or by team. Right now we're at the manufacturer level, but it's going to get competitive and people are going to start to want their person and them to help them. But let's, we kind of alluded to it. Let's dive into this Vegas GP because there's a lot of things technically that you can talk about that Landon and I don't know as much about so well. And that is, one, this track is a unique design. There's a lot of talk about the temperatures and the conditions that these drivers are going to be experiencing, the teams. There's no support races running on the track, which is brand new asphalt. So, I mean, there's a lot of things going against this in terms of being raceable conditions. And I guess my question, though, is like in IndyCar, they have like 100-degree rule, which is the track temp plus the ambient temp combined to 100. That's when they're allowed to run. And that's Fahrenheit, by the way. Does F1 have a minimum temp? No,
nothing like that.
So what's happening here? How do you tackle this?
Let's start through the top of this because I think you touched on all the super important points. It's first of all, it's fresh tarmac or asphalt. If you roll back to Austin 2012 when Formula One first came to Circuit of the Americas, that was brand new tarmac, and it was a really chilly morning. And I remember it's like I was so excited to be at home, doing work, and then the guys are like, there is absolutely zero grip. So that presents a really interesting challenge in terms of setting up the car because roughly for this type of circuit, this is where you should be with, your tools and the car setup. But everything that's happening is dominated by the tires not having any grip. So you're like, okay, do we chase this so it's drivable and get lost, or do we let the track come to us? And reality is you do a combination of both. And the second factor in that is the circuit is mostly low-speed corners and several long straights. So those are, two big problems. Is there's no high-speed cornering content or very little, which is where F1 tires generate most of their temperature that makes the grip usable. And then, you've got the huge back straight down the Las Vegas Strip into a huge braking zone. You'll probably be going well over 200 miles an hour on freezing cold tires, slamming on the brakes. And you probably haven't had a whole lot of time to put any energy into the brakes as well, which means those will be very interesting. So those are kind of like the two things. It's like none of those things are good for generating grip, and then you don't have any support series to help polish off the top of that tarmac to expose those stones so you can properly get adhesion off of them. It's going to be chaos, and I think you'll see teams just kind of struggling through free practice 1, free practice 2, like we call them the long runs or the high fuel race preparation runs. Those are going to be even more useless than usual. And I honestly think it's going to be chaos. And maybe not in a bad way, though. Huh. Maybe not in a bad way.
Well, and it does bring up, we can dive into sort of who you think is going to be fast and that sort of thing, who maybe it suits. But just quickly, I'm curious, though, with all that, with the long straightaway, where in the downforce spectrum do you put this one? Like, what do you expect teams to be seeing from their simulation as to being high downforce, low downforce configuration?
Very low. Not
adds to
Monza
it too.
Low, but like maybe in the realms of Spa, because Spa, you've got that compromise of you've got lots of long straights, but you also have some medium and high speed corners. So the closest thing I can think of is Baku. You've got a track where Sector 1 and Sector 2 are mostly low speed 90-degree corners, and then you've got this huge, nearly 2 kilometer long straight, just under a mile. And it's like, with all the lap time is there. And you saw McLaren in Spa, they had a lot of downforce on their car because they didn't even have a lower rear wing level than that. So they're super fast through all the high speed stuff, and they get murdered down the straight and they can't attack where they have the grip because difficulty of overtaking is so high. So definitely low-ish to very low downforce.
Yep.
Maybe not Monza, but low.
Wow.
Well,
Wow.
it sounds interesting to me. How much more? I mean, with a high downforce setup for Vegas, I mean, even though you're going to sacrifice straightaway speed, will you gain some tire temperature and see some compounding gains there? Not just with having downforce for the corners, but also being able to generate a little more heat. If it's really that cold, will it generate more heat down the straightaway and, kind of have more of a benefit than you would think?
I think that's completely possible, but I think what will end up happening if we're talking about single lap performance, the qualifying sessions are long enough that let's say on a normal qualifying 3 session, which is 10, 12 minutes, you'll do 2 runs, out lap, fast lap, in lap, new set of tires, refuel the car and go again. You might just seeing them do out lap, slow lap, 3 or 4 of them in a row, and then a single shot at a timed lap. And that way, when it comes to Sunday, you will still have that low downforce rear wing, which means anybody that's put on a higher downforce package that's maybe found 2 or 3 tenths over you through the low speed corners, you're going to fly past them on the straight, and they will have no chance to come back at you through the the low speed twisty sections, because these cars are surprisingly big. And
I've got one more question for you that I've always wanted to ask. When they go to these new tracks and it's so, quick turnaround, we literally just built this racetrack. We dealt with this with Miami. You guys deal with this at all these others. How do they scan these tracks, get the simulation built, the track surface, the grip levels? Like, how do they do that?
Magic
and be accurate enough for you guys to rely on simulation?
I think so. The first thing is it's a street circuit, so there's probably not, like, if there's any elevation changes, like minor elevation changes on this, that will have been surveyed and data will have been gathered by the teams. They've been given engineering drawings, and they start with that, and it's kind of a rudimentary thing. And they're like, well, what do we know about track bumps and track roughness? They will not know that, so they'll make some guesses about what it is. And then after free practice 1, they will have, they've got a lot of accelerometers on the car and on the hubs and everything. They can actually regenerate the road profile to say, right, this is how bumpy the circuit actually is. So do we need to re-optimize our springs and dampers and our center springs and all of that? And they'll run that back through their simulation tools and check the results. But it's going to be one of those things that, considering how bad the grip will be, it's going to be very difficult to judge any of that from the driver feedback to say, oh yeah, the car is a little bit too stiff or it's not riding the bumps. You could figure that out, but can you find half a tenth of a second in grip from optimizing the dampers? And that's going to be what they're playing with.
That's interesting.
As
opposed to a track that you guys have known for decades, like Spa. I would imagine their simulation programs know the track surface and grip levels of Spa much more intimately than
hey,
track.
So I think we could do this all day. Blake, you're awesome.
It's totally
you
possible.
have so much knowledge, man. We'd love to. We do have Cole Custer coming up here in a couple minutes, but before we let you go, I just want to ask you a couple sort of quicker questions that are sort of around the F1 world
answer
right now. Yeah, well, you can give us a little bit more than 1 word.
2 words.
I'll give you a couple. Yeah, 2. There you go. Everyone's talking about McLaren. Are they for real with this speed that we're seeing? Okay,
absolutely.
Got it.
They're back. Genuinely
interesting. You mentioned Mercedes having the issues down the straights at Brazil. Do they have any fix for this, or is this sort of what we can expect from them on these sort of racetracks? They have to make that compromise.
I think you will see them tending towards the lower downforce end of the spectrum. They've had some updates that they brought out in Austin. Have they gone back to them? Have they been conservative in their setup approach as a result of getting thrown out in Austin for ride heights? I like to pretend that I know what I'm talking about, and some things I do. But in terms of that's you guys know this very well. Racing is chaos, and if you could predict it correctly every weekend, you wouldn't see upsets, you wouldn't see changes. So I enjoy not knowing what's going to happen with Mercedes. I'd like to see them much faster and closer to the front.
All right, and Aston Martin. Obviously, Fernando Alonso looks strong in Brazil. Could they turn this around? Could this be an opportunity for them in Vegas?
Possibly, yeah. I think since the middle of the season, their car has been a little bit better in terms of top speed. At the start of the season, they were the dog slow car in a straight line with insane levels of downforce. Now, I think we might be seeing them finding their way after a little upset in the middle of the season and finding a way to make this package work that they've got. Brazil was impressive. Brazil was so impressive. And as a result, you saw Lance, who in the last couple of races been insanely frustrated. All of a sudden, Lance is back up there as well. So it's like when the car's good, Lance can hang on. And, Alonso's flattering it quite a bit. But when the car's terrible, Lance is struggling a bit. So I would like to see Aston back. And that means, hey, we've got basically 5 teams that could be fighting to be on the podium. I like that.
That's awesome. So that leads to my last question, which is something we've done on the Money Lap for the last couple of months. And that is, instead of predicting the winner of the F1 race, because that's not been it's been a pretty easy thing to predict, who finishes second this weekend, and maybe, or is there a reason Max Verstappen won't win?
I think Ferrari could go well here. I'm happy to be completely wrong, but I think you could see Leclerc on the second step of the podium again, and I'd like to see him back after he needs some help. That boy. Oh my God.
Yeah. Hey, this has been awesome, man. We'd love to have you back.
You guys have been awesome.
Yeah,
I love chatting with people from different backgrounds because we all have the same kind of questions for each other. So I want to pick both of your brains because I've got so many questions right now about your world. So
we've got more time on the show here.
Yeah,
we've got several weeks of it. We've got more time on the show later today. Maybe we'll get you on in a little bit, or we could get you on one of our other live shows. This has been an absolute
Let's chat
pleasure.
Another time, honestly. But you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for inviting me to join your show, and I will see you soon. All right.
See you, Blake.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. That was cool. I love that. That guy.
Yeah, very
he
cool.
obviously knows
What a
his
guy.
stuff. he knows
That's
Formula
awesome.
One and has such an amazing perspective and can articulate it so well, which is why I love his content. But we alluded to it, Landon. We have a guy who has won a cup race coming on here. He has also been referred to as a colonel at times. He's been in a bar fight on the front stretch of a racetrack in Canada. That very person he had to fight for a championship in 2023. None other than Stone Cold Custer, the 2023 Xfinity Series champion on the Money Lap Live. Kicked my ass. Congratulations, buddy. Really well done.
Oh yeah, round of applause.
Oh, we got the issue again. Can you reset your I think you're muted.
He is muted. We're gonna make sure he
All
gets
that.
unmuted here.
This is going to be a trend here. With the
You got me
technology
there.
we're using. There you are.
Yeah, there we are.
All right. No,
My
thank you
man.
guys for having me on.
Yeah.
You're dialed
I
in.
mean, first and foremost, you're a champ. What is a week and a half that you've been a champion felt like? Is anything different? Have you woken up and just been doused in champagne every morning and the rivers flow of gold? What's the situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's been crazy, it's something that you dream of since you've been a little kid, so being a part of something like that, that's just truly surreal is pretty crazy. And it's just something you try and take in every moment, it's so crazy every single time you take a step back. So it's just cool to be a part of.
I love it, man. That is cool. I got to ask you, although I love your dog in the background, whoever that is. Hey, dog.
She's going crazy. I hate it.
What has been, when you went into that Phoenix race, what did you think your chances were of being able to win this championship? Being in the championship, having those 3 competitors you had?
I knew we were going to have a good shot at it just because in the playoffs we had really just stepped up our cars and we were getting better and better and better throughout the year. But it was just always in the back of your mind, you knew that's Gibbs's place. That's where they've just been so good for so many years. Won the championship there, I think, a few times now in the Xfinity Series, and it's just you kind of had that in the back of your mind. You're like, I'm going to do everything I can, but you almost feel like you have the cards stacked against you a little bit, But when we unloaded on, I guess it would have been Friday, I knew we had something for them. I mean, that was definitely the best car I've ever had at Phoenix. And it took a lot to get there, it took a lot of trying to look at past notes and everything that we've looked at through this year to get our cars better. And it was just, they brought a bolt to the racetrack though. It was pretty unreal that first lap.
What it made me think of something, Cole, that, by the way, long time no see. I hope you missed me this. Well, I know
we
you
missed you in the
this
series
year.
this year.
I know. I missed you guys too. So, your teammate Riley had a hell of a tear those couple weeks in the playoffs, at Vegas, and Homestead running really well. Was there something that they hit on or anything there that contributed to your success as a team? I mean, or was it just, did everything coming out of your shop peak at the right time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely peaked at the right time. But when you look at that, what they did at Vegas was the biggest thing. We were able to take some of those notes and be able to try and apply that to our cars. And we went to Homestead and we led a lot of laps until I hit the fence. But it was definitely, those guys without the two teams and having both notes. I mean, it was a huge gain. I think how our two teams work together is second to none. I feel like. A lot of times in teams you have some egos and you have people who don't want to work together. But I feel like our two teams work really well and we're able to bounce ideas off each other. And without that, I don't think we'd have this championship. So with what Riley and Davin and those guys did was definitely a huge part of it.
And I think that's a key point to something I wanted to dive into, which is just to take a step back in the season. Landon alluded to it. You guys really found speed in the playoffs. But I can think back to Las Vegas in the spring. I think I passed you on a long run for 13th at one point in the race. And I remember thinking, like, how the hell am I passing that car? I mean, you guys just weren't there, right? And it was like the springtime. Where did it start for you guys to click and sort of turn this around? And I know, we can dive into this a little bit more later in this time, but like coming back from the Cup Series into the Xfinity Series, where did it start to click? And was some of it yourself just learning these, getting back with these cars, or did you guys start to find things in those cars? And if you want to give me a secret, that'd be fine. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like we started off the year and we went to Fontana and we had a really good shot to win that race. So I was confident. Like, I didn't feel like I was having to relearn the cars. Like, I felt like I was pretty comfortable with what was going on. But then we went to Vegas and it was like, wow, we are in trouble. This is not what I expected. We were barely running 15th. And it was just one of those things.
Oh, no.
So it was really tough because
there he is.
I'm back.
Sorry, we cut out for a second.
It was really tough. It was.
Oh, no.
He might be taking a call right now.
Calling me.
Someone calling you?
Yeah, my wife's calling me.
Oh, how late.
But,
jeez.
But it was just tough because we had these notes from when I ran the Xfinity Series 4 years ago. And it's like, we look at those and it's like, can we run setups that were from 4 years ago? Is that still going to work? So that was what was really tough at the start of the year of figuring out what we needed to bring to the racetrack. Whether it was 4 years ago or was it what the 98's been running recently, or do we need something completely different because the package changed a little bit for Xfinity this year. So it was just trying to figure out what we really needed in the cars. And about Richmond or so is where it really turned around and we were able to get some solid.
Hi,
I'm sorry,
his
guys.
wife.
No. Yeah, Custer, we can give him a second if you want to send her a text message or whatever it is you want to do. No worries.
Tell her you're busy right now.
Have some, I did have a thought that, and you guys are kind of going down that path that I'd felt like I didn't give you enough credit throughout the season. And I felt like, you were a sleeper for the championship and obviously won the championship. It was like a very quiet championship, and it was kind of a gradually then suddenly type thing, for at least from my perspective. And I don't know if you felt the same thing. And even comparing that to your, the last time you were in the Xfinity Series, you won 10 races in 1 year, I think, or 8 or 9 races. And now, this year I felt like it was a lot quieter leading into the championship. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, there he is.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly that was a good thing for me because going back to the Xfinity Series, everybody had these expectations that we were going to win like 15 races and it was going to be easy.
Right.
And it was anything but that, like it was it was tough. I mean, yeah, me and Parker just grinding it out for 13th,
Ugh.
at the start of the year. It was racing our tails off. Like it was tough, and I think it made me learn how to work with my team to solve problems. Like how do we work together to get our cars better, so we can go compete for wins. And I think it's just knowing the full scope of what you have going on with the car and the situation, and just knowing how we can work as a team to make it better. And I think that's what was a definitely proud part of our year, was just being able to really work as a team to get it all better.
So I gotta tell you a funny story. Speaking of like you guys turning it around, so Portland earlier this year, obviously, I went in practice. I was 0.3 faster in the field. Then we blew a gearbox in qualifying. I had to come through the field. I get there towards the end. I make a late move on Justin Allgaier. You are able to slip into the lead off of my move into turn one. Whatever you feel like, good or bad move, it allows you to go on and win that race. Was this the turning point? And I don't know if you've ever said thank you. So,
yeah, hold on. Give him an opportunity. Yeah. Are you going to give him an opportunity to thank you right now?
Yeah, you can say thank you.
I do need to say thank you for that one. Yes.
You're welcome. The other part of that was, well, hold on. So then Justin Allgaier comes up to me and some other people, and they're like, there you go. You just let him win the championship forever. And when you went and won it, I was like, I guess they can see the future.
Yeah, but no, honestly, I knew what was going to happen that restart in Portland because I did it the restart before. Because I missed the chicane the restart before. So I was like, when I saw you drive it in there 3 wide, I was like, I've done this. I'm not doing that again.
Yeah, you saw. Wait, be honest. When I started braking, were you like, yeah, that's way too late?
Yeah, I was like, "There's no way he's not gonna make it." If you made it, I would have been very love to be shocked right there.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
Hey, one question I have for you, Cole. So I love the technical aspect of what we do. From the driver stuff and the driver preparation and the simulation and our involvement in it, also just the things that we aren't involved in, the build of the cars and the engineering and stuff like that. But as drivers and involved drivers, and you've been around racing for a long time, I know that you're really well versed in everything that goes on in the sport. I'd love to hear your perspective on how different the Xfinity series and the operations of your Xfinity team are compared to where it was the last time you were in Xfinity running full time. Because obviously technology has changed, even though it's only been a couple of years, technology has changed, the tools have changed. But you race for the same team twice. But with this hiatus, I'm curious what was different between the two eras of Xfinity for you.
Yeah, honestly, not too much. The chassis are very similar. The bodies are very similar. So everything is very similar to what it used to be. The only difference is we had the SKU change going into this year. So we had to kind of adjust for that a little bit. But that turned out not to be a huge deal, it seemed like. So overall, I mean, the amount of engineers we had, I think the biggest thing is just when I raced Xfinity last time, we had practice, so we had more people at the racetrack, you were throwing more things at it. So there were less people at the track this year than what I was the last time I drove. But really, I mean, the Xfinity series has been one of those series it's stayed the same for the last, 8 to 10 years. Like the package really hasn't changed much. So it's definitely just been pretty steady.
Which is really to the benefit of the teams. Their costs and their investment, has not had to change by redesigning cars. I mean, has your time in the simulator changed from where it was, multiple years ago? Your preparation on side of things, I think the pressure you get from the teams to be prepared, is that any different?
Maybe a little bit, because we do have SMT now. We didn't have SMT when I think it was just coming in the Xfinity series when I was ending in 2019. But the problem in the Xfinity cars is that you don't get to actually look at the throttle and brake. It's really just a speed trace around the racetrack. So it's a little bit tough to base everything off that. Like one time at Vegas, I think the first race, it said I went wide open through 3 and 4, and I was like, there is no way. Like, I know I lifted. So it was it's just one of those things where it's like you kind of look at it, but you kind of don't. And I think the simulator also, I think we've gotten that better. We definitely spent a lot of time in the off season trying to get it better and better, just to try and make it more realistic to what we have in real life. But other than those two things, it really hasn't changed a ton.
That's interesting about the SMT, because I feel like, it has been a transition for me as well, right? In terms of how you use it, what you extrapolate from it. And for the fans and everyone else listening out there, SMT is basically the data that we're all given. We can see everyone's data, but in the Xfinity series, the throttle and the brake is not real data. It's just extrapolation from a pedometer that's moving around in there. So the only thing we can really tell is the GPS speed, and then the GPS positioning, which is not always even that exact. So I think for the first time in history, by the way, you were a driver that had the data saying you were flat out, and you admitted to not being flat out. So that's a new one. Never happened in racing before.
I could have had something on everybody there.
Yeah, you've been like, well, you just walk in your crew chief, you're like, look,
went along with it.
Yeah, you're like, look, guys.
Well, what's funny,
flat out.
I can zoom in on that for just a second, because a lot of people saw that at Vegas. What's crazy about it is we do lift just a little bit there in Vegas in 1 and 2 and in 3 and 4 in qualifying. And the reason the SMT thinks that you're running wide open is because the speed loss through that corner is so little. I mean, your top speed at the end of the straightaway is like 192. Your min speed in qualifying is like 180, right?
Yeah, and it's a little higher, like 186.
or maybe higher than that. So the computer still thinks that you hardly lifted at all. And that's what Parker and Cole were both saying there, is that it's just using the GPS location and the accelerometer inside the car to gauge, how much brake it's estimating how much brake and throttle you're using.
That's the word I was looking for, not pedometer, accelerometer. Thank you for correcting me there. Cole, to that point, that qualifying lap at Vegas, I like to say, is one of the last real intense qualifying laps in NASCAR, because of the low downforce, the way the Xfinity car drives. But talk to me. Fans love the Xfinity series right now. It's getting its own identity. It's classic stock car racing. You did a lot of next gen races this year. Is it, as a driver, is there an excitement of just when you think about the raw, just driving an Xfinity car? Is that cool to you? Is that fun? Is that what you get out of this series? I know, we've all, the racing's intense, the teams are close, but what is the enjoyment level you have from just driving the Xfinity car, which a lot of drivers seem to talk about saying it's their favorite?
Yeah, I mean, I think so for sure. I mean, it's even when, at the start of the year when I knew I was going to start driving the Xfinity car, it was like, man, I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun racing those things, they can, because the dirty air isn't as bad in them. You can drive the cars more sideways. The tires fall off and they slip and slide around. So there's just more that you can do as a driver, and there's more that you can. It just puts on better racing because guys are slipping and sliding around. It's not hard to get to somebody's bumper because the dirty air's not as bad. So you're just able to race a lot more with people.
I love that. So I want to think about go deep into the personality of Cole Custer and your personal life in terms of how vindicating was it to get this championship this year? I think for a lot of people, you were in the Cup Series, you've won a race, then it wasn't going as well as you maybe hoped. You have to take the step back, or even some people say maybe it's a step back, or sort of, a chance to go win races, whatever it is, to win a championship. When you crossed the line and had won the championship, what was the emotion of there you go? I know, how vindicating was that?
It was huge. I mean, I think, going into this year, I mean, it was definitely, a little bit of a drop down, and I think that's how people took it. And I was excited about the opportunity just because I knew we were going to have opportunities to win races. But at the same time, you kind of had to try and prove yourself. It was just one of those years you really had to try and dig deep and try and prove to people what you can do. And just being able to finally cross that line to be a champion that I've never done in the top 3 series is huge. And I think being able to show people that that's on your resume forever, that you can go out there and win championships. So it's just something I've never done before, and I think it's something that definitely lets people think of you in a little bit of different light.
Your dog agrees. I love that.
Yep, she liked that.
She agrees
What is
with you.
what is going cup racing look like for you? I mean, is that I hate to just go the normal, typical route of asking a question or the question that everybody would ask. Like, okay, you went back to Xfinity and you won a championship, you going cup racing? But it's more like, I don't know, what is from this perspective now, what does the Cup Series look like to you? Does it look interesting? Does it look fun? I mean, you've driven the next gen, you know how intense that series is, how much pressure it is. I fully expect you to say, I want to race Cup again. I want to win a championship. So I'm not going to let you off with just saying that. Like, I kind of really, for a young guy who's got the talent and the runway and the ability, has raced Cup. Now you've come back and won an Xfinity championship. You're married. What does that series look like from your perspective right now in that commitment level?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to run Cup. I think that's just where that's where obviously the best competition in the world is. There's 30 guys out there that can literally go out there and win any given week. So that's definitely where, as a race car driver, I think you want to be. But I think, obviously in the Xfinity series, it's a lot of fun competing for wins with a great group of guys and championships. So it's one of those things, it can be hard in racing saying what you really deserve to have, because there's people in go-karts and quarter midgets that could probably have run Cup and been Cup champions, but they don't have the means to go beyond that. Like, it's just saying what you deserve in racing is a tough thing. So I think you really just take it one step at a time, and you're waiting for that right opportunity, and you feel like you hope that you have the right timing with the organization and how everything works and the people, and then you also just have to be able to problem solve good with your team to make everything better. And I'd love to get that opportunity to try and do that again, because I feel like I could do a lot better job. I feel like my first time in Cup, I was just trying to figure everything out, and then also, I think as a younger guy in the cars, you're struggling a little bit. You just get a little bit lost on what the problems are. So you just, it's hard to fix things. And I think if I went back again, I could be a better lead us in the right direction on which way to go and how to fix things with your team.
Yeah, it's it's interesting. Like, it's interesting you say that. I feel like it's definitely with the next gen. One thing that's a little bit different is it's for a driver looking at Cup opportunities. A positive of the next gen is I think you can win from way deeper in the field than ever before, right? We've seen it with Michael McDowell. We've seen it with Eric Jones. Obviously 2311 is a competitive team, and yeah, their cars are basically like Gibbs cars, but they're still a technical alliance team that in the past, technical alliance teams were always that just half a step below the primary, the key partner. And now it seems like a team of those caliber are just as capable of winning multiple races or, going deep into the playoffs as ever before. So I feel like from a driver's perspective, that's a good thing. But it also maybe makes it a tough thing to gauge, hey, when is the right time to take this opportunity? Because in the past, for a driver that's maybe has a lot of control over their career, or the opportunity of saying, hey, I only want to go to a Cup team if I have a chance at winning a championship. Well, how do you decide that now when you have so many teams, so many more teams that could really take you there, take you to victory lane? It was a lot more obvious in the past to say, well, you put me in a Hendrick car, you put me in a Stewart-Haas car, I know I'm going to win races. I know I'm going to make the playoffs. That's not a guarantee anymore. And that could, I feel like that could make the decision for an Xfinity driver a little bit tougher to know when is the time right to move yourself up.
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure, in some ways, it makes it easier, because if if you're racing for a, whatever you want to call it, a B-level team, a B-level team is better than they ever have been in the past.
Yeah.
So you can go out there and you're not going to be running 25th every week. You're going to have chances to run top 10, so it's, you can look at it both ways, I guess, but I think any opportunity you can get in Cup right now is probably a pretty solid one, just because the cars are so equal and everybody's starting to figure that car out. Like you see, I mean, the Rick Ware guys and the Spire, front row, all these guys. It's all getting closer and closer and closer as we go, just because
Yeah.
it's more data and more everybody's figured that car out that little bit better.
Hey,
Parker, what did I always
gotta
say about driving in the Cup Series?
What's that?
Don't ever turn down a chance to race in the Cup Series.
That's true. You have said that.
That's what makes it tough. Is like, as a driver, if you get that call. I mean, we're going to talk to Carson Hocevar here in a couple minutes, and that's one where it's just like he's in a position where he got a call, he's got an opportunity to go to the Cup Series. You almost can't turn it down. You have to try it. You have to do it as a young driver, especially at his age. Like, go do it. It's you may be taking a risk by getting stuck in lesser equipment or not having the success that you had always dreamed of. But man, the risk of passing up an opportunity to race Cup full time is not one that you want to take.
We do have a live chat, Cole, and so I got to ask you some questions from the live chat. One really important one from a guy named, I've never heard this guy, Moonhead, first-time caller. How many beers did Mr. Custer drink in the 48 hours following his championship, known as Stone Cold, the smashing of beers? How many of those were drank, actually? I mean, you even put out a video where you progressively got covered in more and more beer over the minute of that video.
In that video? Well, the funny thing about that one is I still had to drive home. So I had to kind of figure out how to not drink it, honestly. So, because I had to drive home still. So not much was drank in that, honestly. We've definitely, the big thing was we went to a bachelor party this past weekend for one of our buddies in New Orleans, and that was an experience. So we got to celebrate my championship, and he actually works for Ross Chastain also. So we kind of got like a double whammy of wins. So it was a big weekend for sure.
Did you bring your checkered flag or anything with you? Did just be like, or your trophy? Hey, I just got this little thing to drink out of.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna risk that in New Orleans. It would have ended up in the gutter, or someone would bad happen.
That is very true. I think one thing that Landon pointed out here, and I want to point this out, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, and I think it's because I've been around you for so long. You are only 25 years old. Like, I thought you've been racing and winning in the top 3 NASCAR series, which feels like for a while now. You've won a Cup race. You're now a champ. I mean, there's a huge, I think when you look at a driver, myself, I'm 33, getting back in the Xfinity series, but when you look at a driver like yourself who's done multiple years in Cup, gets the chance to go to Xfinity, win a championship, you're still only 25. A lot of people don't ever get to Cup before 25 years old, or even at 25, or even 26, 27. I mean, this, your runway here is immense, and it has to be very, I don't know. I just feel like that has to be a very cool thing, being as young as you are and have accomplished so much already.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely gotten a lot of experience and had a lot of luck of, having the opportunities I have, and just very grateful for that too, but I think that is something that helps me, I think in the future, just because I have done a lot of things now. I've run the trucks, I've run Xfinity, run Cup, gone back to Xfinity, and, had success. And it's just, you learn a lot more. You learn a lot more about the scope of everything, and what goes into it, how to work with people, and how to make things better, I think. And when you're the really young guy, you're just kind of behind the wheel hoping for the best. You're just hoping that the car's fast and everything goes right, where when you're more of a veteran guy, you can have more on a say of how we get things better, so it's definitely I've never been in that situation before this year, so it's cool to be a part of.
Yeah, I got to ask you though, what is your lift point?
We'll get to that when we get to Daytona. I'll tell you my lift point.
We just get real quick. Landon doesn't even know this one. So back in April, Martinsville, I walked up to you as we were going out to qualify in the line, and I said, "Hey man, what's your lift point into one or whatever?" And you're like, "I'm not telling you." You went on to win the pole, I believe. I think I qualified 21st. Thanks for no help. But ever since that moment, I think I once a week asked you, "What is your lift point?" Even at the road courses. So I just thought I would ask you, what is the lift point one more time in 2023?
But
Before I
then,
let you
like
go.
the first time I cracked too, I think was Homestead maybe. And
Yeah.
you went out to practice. I think you were like, I told you like everything where I was lifting. You were second, I think, and I was third or something. I was like, good thing I didn't do this all year.
It finally worked. Thank you. Yeah, no, it actually did help a ton. We were really fast that day and everything. But you went on to lead a bunch of laps. We both hit the wall. I did it from 7th. You did it from 1st. But anyway, man, this has been awesome to have you on here. We really appreciate you coming on the Money Lap Live, being one of our first ever guests, and as a champ. I mean, I can't believe we could get the time with you as a champion of the Xfinity Series. Look forward to racing you next year. But we do have a question of the day I actually just remembered we have to ask you. And that is the trend for this week, obviously, is the Las Vegas GP. That's the big trending topic in motorsports. Who do you believe or will predict finishes second in the Las Vegas GP this weekend?
Man, that's a tough one. I'll go with Leclerc, like what the guy said before. I'll go with him too. I feel like Ferrari, they need a little something right now, and I think they might get it.
All right, bam! Wow, he must have been listening to Blake before this. In terms of, he felt like Ferrari was going to be good as well. So hey, man, really appreciate you coming on. This has been awesome. And yeah, you are. You're right there. You're one of the experts. So congratulations on your championship. Enjoy the off season, buddy. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you guys. Thanks for having me on. Sorry about my dog.
No worries.
No worries. Cool.
Loved it.
See you, buddy. Thanks for joining.
Awesome. You alluded, yeah, he's great and pretty cool. I point out the 25 years old thing because you mentioned it. He's young, whatever, and then I was like, wait a second, how young is he? And he's 25. I mean, all that he's done.
Old in NASCAR
I don't know if I realized that. Yeah, well, you say that. I don't know.
He's got those NASCAR years. I had the same thing. When I was 25 because I had been in NASCAR since I was 17. I started at Hendrick when I was 17. So, anytime I told somebody how old I was, they were like, "You're what?" I feel like I still get that at 34. I've been here forever since 07. So Cole's gonna have the same feeling. By the time he's 30, it's like he's gonna be a grizzled veteran.
Poor guy. He'd be ready to retire. You think about Mark Martin coming back at like 31, 32 and goes on to have a 20-year career, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That's just, I don't know if we'll see that. Although I think I have a thought on that the competitiveness of the next gen car, you're seeing it with the Michael McDowell and that sort of thing, where experience is going to be so important because you have such a close, field. It's never, I did a thing on the pre-race show for the Phoenix race. And we talked about pit road. And I was like, the reason pit road has become even more insane is that you look by every available metric, the field has never been closer than right now in the NASCAR Cup Series in terms of first to 36. And you mentioned the competitiveness, that sort of thing. And so it's a time where experience could prevail over the idea of like just the youngest, hottest shoe because they have the ability to cut through the hundredths of a second difference that they might have over the young person. That helps, right? In some respect.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been one that has said that, NASCAR, motor racing in general, but then NASCAR specifically, is a sport that rewards experience over talent, even, raw talent or youth. For much. What am I trying to say? I'm not wording this the right way, but the sport does weight experience a little bit higher than I feel like other sports do. Experience I think is important in any sport. Sorry, my nose was a little itchy there.
Don't worry, you got the sickness I've
I think
got. I'm legitimately
I know
sick.
experience is obviously important in any sport, in any business, in any, in anything. And even for different positions in, let's say, football, I think that experience is weighted differently by the position, right? I think for a quarterback, experience is probably more heavily weighted over talent or youth than other positions where it's just being young and healthy and fit and strong are extremely heavily weighted. But in NASCAR specifically, it seems like experience does carry you for a long time. And obviously, looking at a driver like Kevin Harvick, there's the longer those guys race, the better they get. And I do think that having the next gen being such a big difference in terms of the car and changing the tire and changing all these things about how we drive the car is something that is challenging these experienced drivers, because it's taking the experience advantage that those older drivers have and kind of knocking them down a couple pegs to be on a level playing field with a young driver like Carson Hocevar, who we're going to talk to here in very shortly. Carson's got an opportunity to start from on a much more level playing field with these more experienced drivers because the next gen is so new.
So it's exactly what's happening. There was actually a great Reddit conversation on our NASCAR, which we like to peruse sometimes, this past week. And the title of it was Unpopular Opinion. SMT data should not be available. There was actually an interesting responder to this as well, Landon, who was Chase Briscoe, who basically said, I'd be all for this. It's so frustrating to keep hearing what other guys are doing when your car won't allow you to do it. Now, I think we need some background on this one as to why SMT data even came about, right? So as the Cup Series went to EFI, which is the electronic fuel injection, and this, by the way, I'm just going to preface this by this happened in IndyCar, it happened in F1 as well, essentially. In F1, it's a little bit more guarded, and they do a better job of basically hiding and keeping their data siloed from other teams. But in IndyCar and NASCAR, as everyone ran the same control unit, right, ECU, what became apparent was that this data was being pumped out of those cars for TV purposes and for whatever, other reasons that NASCAR could look at this data. Some really innovative teams and manufacturers were able to start viewing this data. And that became something that was hard to stop. And so because of that, instead of saying, hey, we're going to ban this or we're going to find a way to hide it, that sort of thing, it just became available for everyone. And now as you, as a driver, can do a lap, I can look in real time at your lap in the NASCAR Cup Series where it's the most closely, it's the actual data. And I can see your brake and throttle trace, your steering trace, your speed, all that, your GPS location, and sort of be able to take that and understand what I should or shouldn't be doing different. I can overlay my car. My team can be looking at it lap after lap. And you hear that all the time on the radios where they're like, hey, Parker, you're 3 mile an hour slow in the center of the corner. It looks like you're overspeeding the entry by 5 mile an hour, so on and so forth, basically telling you how to just change what you're doing in the race car. So to me, I think it's one of those things where you can't put it back. I get the frustration. I sometimes have said, I think I said on this podcast, that I didn't love SMT. I felt like it's maybe hurt driver value at times or something, that maybe a driver has a secret if they have at a racetrack, but it's inevitable. And I think it's basically happened across all motorsports at this point that have, this data being pumped out of those cars for broadcast reasons.
I would agree with the sentiment that it's not helpful. I love it. And that's why, I think that you might get some conflicting messaging from me because I am so technical and you know how I am with that stuff. I love the data. I love looking at it. I love using it as a tool to make myself better. I think it probably makes the racing worse. And I would say that if I could go really far with it, anything that assists the driver at all, I think makes the racing worse. So I could go as far as saying, I wish we didn't have spotters for performance reasons. Obviously, we have safety reasons for spotters, but I wish we didn't use the spotters for performance reasons. I wish we didn't have mirrors in the cars. I wish we didn't have SMT data. I think there's a lot of I think
Wait a
anything.
second. Wait. No mirrors. So you want to be like USAC midgets?
Yeah, absolutely. Like dirt racing,
I
short
don't
track
mind
racing.
mirrors. I like
mirrors are okay, but I don't think it improves the racing quality. Maybe for safety they're okay, but I don't. Obviously you can't use them for safety and not use them for performance. But having a real clear camera behind the car so you can see exactly where your competitor is to block them from overtaking you, I don't think that makes the racing better.
Yeah, I can see that. Yep.
So if anything, it makes the racing worse. Especially with how aerosensitive these cars are. Now we have spotters that communicate with their drivers on just more efficiently than ever. On strategy, we have the drivers with a high definition camera that can see behind them, and know exactly where their competitors are and how far away they are. And so they can aero block a car that's 10 car lengths behind them. If you imagine taking the cameras and the spotters away from that, how many more overtakes would happen, passes for the lead would happen if we didn't have spotters and rear cameras. I think the racing would be way better. So so I took our SMT conversation in this this Reddit thread and took it another step further. But so that's why I agree with that is with SMT, and I've heard Denny Hamlin say this, and I know this from firsthand experience, right? We can see another driver's driving style. If they're doing something better or different than us, we can copy it. We can learn it. We're professionals, right? And I've gotten all kinds of new ideas from things I've seen other drivers do that I would have never, I want to say never, but it would have taken me a lot longer to figure out what those drivers are doing had I not had SMT data. So it makes it tough on these drivers to be innovative. It makes it tough for the innovative drivers to, protect their IP, I guess, in terms of how they drive a car and what they're doing. And on one hand, I think we might think that it levels the playing field, and that could be a good thing if it brings the field closer. But I don't know if that actually translates to good racing.
Yeah.
Or better racing.
It's a tough one. Technology obviously is something that motorsports fights than other sports more than anything, right? It changes. Our playing surface changes more dynamically than anything else out there. And then the physical thing that we do within those to do the sport changes. And that means, the way the cars, the technology changes, you drive them differently. You do different things. And with that comes technology that exposes what we are and are not doing, right? And I just think it is frustrating. As someone who came from the open wheel world originally and had data as a kid, it was really frustrating getting to NASCAR and having no data. Like, I can't tell you how shocking it was at 19 years old to show up to ARCA and that sort of stuff and just have no information as to what I was doing or what I could do different, that sort of thing. We'd go test. That's when you could see it, and then you had to extrapolate that out. And so it's just such a change, right, to have all this data. And I think it's helped to our earlier guest, Blake Hensley, also known as Brrrake, the former F1 Red Bull performance engineer. It has made everyone rise up and be more technical, and the drivers be more technical. I think we're all more open a little bit talking about how we drive and what we drive, because you can see it, right? You can see what we're doing. So there's a double side to it. Here's one thing I wish we had with it, though. If it's out there and it's basically everyone's got it, then why are we not showing it on this show right now, Landon? Why are we not putting it on the screen and able to say, hey, let's dissect the lap? And I'll tell you why. Because it's not currently allowed, basically. Now, we're working on it. We're trying to figure it out. We don't have rights to anything, actually. You may notice that everything we have is social media because we have no rights. But I think if you're going to have this and everyone's talking about it, for it to be not just readily available on the internet for everyone to see, that frustrates me because everyone's talking about it. It's content at that point, and it's midweek content, and you can never have enough content. You want to know how I know that? Because the Money Lab Live is happening right now. That's how little content there is out there. we're filling a void somehow that people are deciding to take their time and tune in with us here on Money Lap Live. If you're listening on the podcasts after this, we've done our best to keep describing these things. Keep yelling at us. To the chat, I see you out there. If you have questions, send them in. We are awaiting Carson Hocevar as our next guest, and we will finish the show with a live on-the-ground report from Jeff Gluck from The Athletic in Las Vegas. That's coming up later. We've actually got a ton of more stuff to go into as well from around the motorsports world. You see a lot of the news out there on our ticker as well, by the way. But to finish my point on all this, I think data is great when it can be used to tell the story. And content is storytelling, and it's stories, right? And that's what we need in this sport. One thing, speaking of technology, that's come out, possibly this is on Reddit as well. So we like to take the conversations around the internet here and put on the Money Lap Live. Possibly a leaked photo of the NASCAR electric vehicle that they want to bring around and sort of showcase. Essentially like a next gen car with a big wing, a little different look. And it would be electric. Steve O'Donnell talked about the electric car in the state of the sport and how this is something they want to bring around. What's funny about the electric deal, and we can dive into this, is that we got to go a little bit into the car world here. 5 years ago, electric was the only thing that was going to be on the road in 5 years, if you listen to everyone. And it was all going to be driverless, and it was all going to be perfect tech and that sort of thing. And guess what? Fast forward 5 years, not really the case. Now, with any sort of massive technological change in the world, of course, you have where it hasn't happened as quick as people hoped, right? It has actually turned out to not be the savior overall in terms of when you have electric cars having to get power from something, that changes how power grids are being taxed and that sort of thing, and not getting too technical. But nonetheless, manufacturers have kind of backed off on saying, hey, we're only going to have electric cars in 5 years. Now it's a mix. Now it's the idea of gas and electric. And so I think that's put racing series in a box. But I do believe NASCAR is showcasing here, hey, look, we can be, and this can be an EV thing if we want, and we'll showcase our cars being in electric capacity. I have no problem with that. I just think the idea that electric was going to be the end all be all has not really surfaced, and especially for motorsports. If it was, we've had the CEO of Formula E on the Money Lap. That would be the biggest race series in the world right now, and it's not. So I think this is it's going to continue to be almost like a side product as opposed to the main product.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's got. I think I would take the Toyota approach to it. Maybe I'll go somewhere in the middle. As much as I do love our engines, but Toyota as a manufacturer has had a similar, smart, more methodical approach to electrifying their product line, and they've said, hey, we'll keep focusing on hybrids and keep developing that, and maybe that is the smarter, more methodical, slow approach to getting more energy efficient cars. And maybe motorsports could go, maybe NASCAR or, motorsports in general could take that same approach and say, hey, how do we go from internal combustion engines to maybe some kind of hybrid to, then someday being full electric?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a discussion, and I think it is going to be a mix, and it's going to have to be a mix. But I think for motorsports, I've talked about this for a while. F1's already doing it. They're going down this idea of these e-fuels, which are these zero-emission fuels that allow the combustion engine to continue without having, the actual the fossil fuel situation we run on now. I do believe that is an opportunity for motorsports and for NASCAR to also be a leader in that. And I know that Steve O'Donnell mentioned looking at different propulsion systems and looking at different fuel situations as they try to chart what does the next decade for NASCAR look like.
So,
right.
So I'm looking at this comment from Florida Man, and suggesting that NASCAR could go the dash route, bringing back that that dash series type car for the EVs. And that would be cool to see, like a unique car, a smaller car, a dash car. That's what they were. They were the, what were the dash cars? They were like,
They're like the 2 doors, like Celicas.
I don't know why I'm
and-
trying to say Supra. Were they Supras
No, it was
back
a
then?
Celica. It was a Celica.
Celica,
Yeah, it was
that's what it was.
Yeah. The 2-door hatch, 2-door.
Yeah, it's like a Celica,
hatchback, that sort of thing.
Cavalier, Ford
Yeah.
Focus or something. Make them electric, race them on short tracks. I mean, you have, doesn't Travis Pastrana's Rallycross EV?
They are electric.
Isn't that
Yeah.
kind of an EV rally car? So
Nitro
that
Rallycross.
similar type of car, but being a NASCAR stock car racing on short tracks, that would be a cool racing series.
That would be fun. The acceleration would be nuts.
Oh my gosh.
The
It
torque,
would be killer on a short track, actually, now that I think about it, depending on their weight.
tire saving. You need to save your tires. Just a reminder to all the viewers out there and those listening on the podcast version of this, we are expecting Carson Hocevar to come on here, and then we will be finishing our 3 hours here, the first ever The Money Lap live show with Jeff Gluck from Las Vegas. Before we get there, though,
We're halfway through.
I'm like, wow, we are.
I haven't gotten an answer from our production chat on when I'm allowed to eat my lunch. As you can see,
So
I've got a smoothie.
we will take a small break somewhere in here, probably a couple minutes max, mostly because I have to use the bathroom. If you can eat your lunch in about 3 minutes, you're allowed to have it. How about that? We're getting live reports that Carson Hocevar is trying to connect. I want to show before we get there, and never mind. I'm not allowed to do anything. We got Carson supposedly, so we will be bringing him on shortly here on the Money Lap Live. I got so many videos I want to show and cool things. This is, the timing of this could not be any worse, Landon.
All right.
I'm kidding. I'm just joking. If we do get Carson on here, I want to let our production team know we're ready. Carson Hocevar, championship contender in the truck series this past season, going on to race for the number 77 Spire Motorsports Chevy in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2024. This driver has a bright future. He's definitely been one of the brightest talents in NASCAR in the last couple of years as a young driver, getting that chance to go to the Cup Series. Welcome to the Money Lap Live, Carson Hocevar. Thank you for coming on, bud.
We're doing good, buddy. I miss you, man. How have you been?
Really?
I know. So have you been playing a lot? So I started, just so everybody knows, we were Carson and I trained together a ton last year, and a lot for the first part of this year as well. So we've been in the sim together. We've gone go-karting together. We've been in the gym together, and we have also played pickleball. And we learned to play pickleball together. So I don't know. Did you play? Have you continued playing, or
I've
been
played
playing
a
much
little
pickleball?
bit just so I can get there. I haven't been able to find a court or find anybody to play with. We moved on to the next sport, and I was like, oh man, like we need to go play pickleball again. Like that's probably the only sport I've actually enjoyed lately that like endures like so physical fitness. Like soccer, I'm like okay, like I kind of enjoy it, but I always did it as a kid. But like I'm really into pickleball.
How tall are you?
6'4.5".
Does that give you an advantage in pickleball since you're like the size of the court potentially?
I had to learn how to like just flick the wrist. Like I would like hit it super hard and it would like launch, and I would just overdo it by like a lot. So I had to learn how to just like barely hit it. But like that part's an advantage, I feel like, just because like I'm so tall, like I got a lot of distance. I got a lot of reach with my backswing per se.
Yep. So, putting pickleball aside, this is a racing show. You are a race car driver, a winning driver in the NASCAR Truck Series this past year, had great starts in the Cup Series, was a championship contender in the Truck Series at the Championship 4 at Phoenix. You didn't get the championship. What was that? for you in terms of, oh, we got some noise here. What'd you just find there? Oh, you got someone behind you. You weren't able to win the championship. How devastating was that? We can dive into all the particulars in a little bit, but what was your sentiment leaving Phoenix, being that close to getting a championship?
It wasn't that bittersweet per se, just because we knew we weren't the fastest that day. Practice, we had to really go to the drawing board. After practice, qualifying, we got it okay. We weren't the fastest that day, and I think that was just the most disappointing part. That we were just having to try anything and everything, whether it was strategy, making a lot of adjustments, just a little bit of everything, just because we didn't have the speed that day. Just tough that I think we made it over prepared per se. I'm not sure. Just Phoenix hasn't been our best track, and definitely not my best. And just tried super hard. It wasn't lack of effort. We spent hours upon hours in the simulator. I spent hours working with Josh Wise, trying to find any different line I could do and achieve. And just wasn't our day, and we kind of knew that going in. So it didn't. So that wasn't. It wasn't a big shock, right? Like you weren't this close, right? I felt like we were trying to make up for the speed we were just kind of lacking that day.
What do you struggle with there? I suck there as well. Landon's getting his lunch in, by the way, so you can have your answers be quite long. I get I have the same problem. I've done hours in the sim. I've tried everything there, and I can turn a fast lap at times, but I get at a point where I'm like, if the top opens up, I can have speed, but
Yep.
for some reason, that place is a blind spot for me. What do you struggle with?
I struggle with 3 and 4, honestly. Like
Same.
I don't know. I feel like I underdrive, and then I feel like I overdrive,
Yep.
and then I feel like everybody gets off the corner better than me, and they roll the center better, and then they can find lines that I just can't, and then they always have a big run. Like even when like I air block them, they can go just run the dog leg, and then all of a sudden I'm battling them into one, and then you're just kind of in a tough spot there. Like I just feel like I'm just very vulnerable in 3 and 4, especially in the cup car. Even like on SMT, like I would have made round 2 except off of 4, like in qualifying. Like I was tracking beating to advance to round 2, and then instantly lost 11 spots off of turn 4.
Perfect.
I was like, awesome.
That's
like, and I was like, man, I thought I actually did. Like I backed it up, but like I backed up entry, and then like I rolled to the gas, and I was slow on entry, and I was slow on exit. So I was like, oh, okay. I just thought I got a good exit, but guess not. And then too, like I feel like I struggle like what to have for a race car handling there. I feel like our like I have a really good idea. Like even like when we're slow, we can get our cars fast, and that was the first race almost all year that like I couldn't even guess a feel. Like I just couldn't even. I didn't know what I needed, per se. Like I was like I don't know, like because I've never really been that fast here. So like it handles okay, but like I need to be better in like 4 areas, and I don't know which one to start with or which one's most important.
Yeah. No, I know that feeling, and it's so funny you say 3. Like that is exactly for me the exact same situation where I enter that corner. I'm like, that's got to be it. Nope, they're driving off the corner better. Okay, let me try more speed. Nope, that's overdriving it. Nope, that's not the right way. Oh, I missed the bottom. Oh, I've got to figure out a way to downshift. It's just an incredibly tough place. I want to take a step back to this year and this season. You are going on to the Cup Series. Congratulations for that, man. It's such a big moment for any young driver. This has been a really career year in terms of results, winning races in the Truck Series and being a championship contender. And I'm going to, I don't want to grill you here, but I think there has been another side to your season that has been a consistent theme, and that has been some of the on-track incidents you've been a part of that led to even being a part of one in the final race. What you and I got together, I can tell you this, you're the first driver I ever actually pushed, by the way. And I'm sorry, I apologize. My rage got over me. You quelled it quite nicely, but my rage, that was at Pocono this year when we were involved in a on-track incident. Yeah, I did look back at my text, by the way. You and I had another incident at COTA 2022, and you wrote me a really nice apology, which was great. And it was a good start to our friendship. But I think for you, right now going to the Cup Series, what like when you look back this year, you've won races, but there's been all these incidents. What do you remember from this year? What are you going to take from this? What do you want people to think about all those times that you've been able to win races, but also been in positions where you maybe pushed too hard or went over the line and got into other vehicles?
Yeah, I obviously don't like the narrative of, he's really fast, or he's super good, but there's always that but,
Mhm.
and then it's just the bad thing. So that's where I have been trying to work on it, right? But also too, it's a tough box, because there is no referee, right? There is no fouls. There's no, like, everything's kind of just frowned upon, right? And you're racing within the code of other drivers, right? And you obviously know this, and
Mhm.
Parker and Landon, like, you're racing for the next few weeks of how you're going to get raced, right? And you're being as aggressive as possible to the extent, like, everything's to the extent. And I've just overdone it at times for sure. And um in my mind, I'm like, oh, this move can work, and it's very, very risky. And just finding
Mhm.
that limit, finding that box of where that risk reward, it has been very, very hard for me to tell, right? Like, because I'm very like, this, if this move works, this could change, and this could snowball the rest of the day. And if we could get all these spots, and it especially happens, like, it's never happened. And me and my late model crew chief were talking about it. We were talking about kids that when they crash for the lead. I've never actually had that, like, where I've never been in a race winning scenario and we've just crashed on, like, the white flag lap. Like, I've never been in that. It's always been
Yep.
when I'm trying super hard to in, like, the middle of the pack, when it almost doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Obviously Phoenix a little different, just being the leader, but, like, it was still a long ways to go in the race. But it's just trying to overextend, right? For me, everything comes. It's always when I'm instinctly, like, it's not when I'm aware. It's in the racer, Parker and Land. I've always tried to describe it. Like, when you just get in, like, your best laps, for me at least, is when I don't remember them. Like Bristol
Yep.
qualifying, I can never tell you. Like, when I run a good Bristol qualifying lap, I don't remember it. When I run a bad one, I can tell you everything wrong with it. Like, I'm aware of it. And that's where I get myself in a bad spot, and that's where I got myself in a bad spot at Phoenix. Was I was just reacting. Um, when I was looking at my mirror, when he went high, I went low. When he went low, I went high, or I was following him. I was running every corner I could. And that's where I get myself in a bad spot, because I'm instinctively doing what I can to the limit. And you're not mind aware, and I'm just reacting, and I'm doing everything I can, and I'm not thinking of the risk. I'm not thinking of, I could put this guy in a bad spot. I'm just looking at, am I putting myself in a spot where I can advance, or am I putting myself in on the limit? And even when I'm just driving, like, even the next gen car, I was practicing Kansas, ran 8 laps in a row. All of a sudden, I zoned out lap 6. Lap 7 was super, super fast. Lap 8, I almost spun out, back to halfway in the fence, caught it, and I was like, oh, okay, that was my limit. I just struggle with that. I still do. Anytime I run a really good lap, I always go a little bit more, and then I'm on edge, and then I almost crash. And it kind of goes the same way with racing. For me, still a little bit. Obviously, I felt like I've made a lot of gains, but also too, like, you only find that stuff out about yourself when you get in those spots, right? Like, you think you're not gonna know in that scenario when you're not aware per se of what you're gonna do until you're in that spot. So it's tough to work on yourself when you don't know how you're going to react, because it's all off instinct anyways. So it's a
Mhm.
lot of work in advance. And, like, Phoenix, me and Grant, I was in a very, very similar spot with me and Grant, where I was 15 lap older tires up front, and me and Grant went to driving super hard, and he got by me, and I started throwing these slider lines, like throwing a massive slide job, barely missing his bumper, like within the centimeter almost. Like there was a few times where I didn't even realize I was that close, and it made a lot of lap time and was able to keep up. And Phoenix, that was when we were going down the dog leg. That's what picked in my mind, right? Off instinct, I'm like, man, like this created lap times. I've talked about the slider line. Actually, that was the way I could create the most speed in stage 1. I'm like, all right, that's what I got to do. He's going to be outside the 52, so he's not going to get the good corner. But my best corner was when I was throwing a slide job. I'm just going to try to do that, get to his right rear, or try to get behind the 52 and push him so he could clear back. And just misjudged it, and you're misjudging it, and you're not aware till you become aware, and then like you're over. Then the adrenaline wears down, and you're like, oh man, like what just happened? Because like in my mind, I was on autopilot, so I don't even know exactly where I was on the racetrack per se, because it was just all happening, and I was just the backseat passenger to what my hands and feet and were doing, and that's such a weird feeling that unless you're in that moment, like you've been a race car driver and you've seen it, the best way I've always described it, right, is for like somebody that's not a race car driver, is when you drive to work and you don't remember the drive. That's kind of the only phrase that I've heard that can kind of click into that. And it's just tough, because it's for me, because I've always thought, and even growing up, the boxing mentality, and I feel like that's what makes me good, but also makes me bad. It's a very big trade-off. The boxing mentality of, I've never understood why sitting at like watching boxing on TV, why they just don't swing the entire time and work as hard the whole time, while everybody's like, if everybody in the race, right, is very calm at the start and very forgiving, very giving, and they'll give up and then they progress. Well, if you're start aggressive, they're all going to let you go, and you could just get the easy spots. And then when it comes time to work hard, well, you've been working hard the whole time. So that's how I've always thought of it growing up, is like, man, like it's very like everybody just gives up a lot of spots at the beginning. Everybody just wants to be very patient. Well, if I'm the only one that's aggressive, then I can get spots, and that is a good mentality per se if you do it right. And I've just probably been on that limit, but I've just looked at every single lap. Why would I not go 100% like it's every lap, whether it's practice, qualifying, race, just because I don't know. It's just I've struggled with that, but that's when I came in here to the sport, that was my mentality. And now it's just being able to adjust that and fine tune that. And I still probably have a good bit of work to do.
I think I actually don't think you need to worry so much about those adjustments. I think you're going to make those adjustments with time and experience and being in those situations more in your training, with Josh and the people around you. I actually, I don't think you should apologize as for this stuff, for a lot of this stuff. I think you're racing hard. People can be critical of, you can be critical of yourself. People might be critical of you in those specific instances, right? Because you're going to look at a specific instance and be like, man, I didn't intend for that to happen. And I know you've got plenty of examples yourself. I've got plenty of examples myself of those instances. So I think you're just, that stuff's going to come to you. And I think experience is going to work itself out. I'd rather you be on this side of things and winning races than too conservative and not winning races. I think so. I think when it comes to that, you're on the right side of things. But I do have one question, because I feel like our sport right now, it seems like every week we're seeing a new highlight reel across so many different series, and from grassroots racing up to the Cup Series, this like payback culture, right? And where gosh, what was it, the late model race a couple weeks ago, the driver was like coming through somebody's windshield, and then you know, and then there's pit road brawls and you know, obviously what happened to you at Phoenix after the fact, right? Like we could talk about the incident itself with Corey Heim, but then after the fact is like, you know, this intentional payback. You know, in Martinsville, obviously, pretty good onboard footage of of you and Ty Gibbs. And I'm trying to think of some other good ones, not pinpointing you, but like other drivers this year, or things that's just
Denny
like,
at Phoenix.
have we been seeing this? Is this all, you know, is it social media and videos and stuff that's like bringing this out, or is there something new with this generation of drivers where we this like payback culture? Where is it coming from, and what do you think of all that?
I think more so it kind of stems from the right of, you know, you're racing within its own like self, right? Like 9 times out of 10, NASCAR normally doesn't step in. I feel like it's inconsistent, right? So you don't know exactly when they're gonna step in, and plus 2, like 9 times out of 10, like you just say you didn't, and you just move on, right? Like, you know, now there's SMT, so that's a little bit more like, I think with SMT kind of becoming aware, like, and people like admitting it, like I think once Denny kind of brought the SMT out of like, oh yeah, that could be used as a thing. I think it's just sort of like whatever the fans are made aware. Like I think NASCAR I don't think NASCAR ever wants to step in, and they've told me that they don't want to step in. They don't want to have to do anything. So that kind of leaves it open per se, I think, to the drivers have at it, and they want to, like, everybody wants to kind of draw a line in the sand, and I think racing gets a, like, drivers get a bad rep for it, because I think we're still human. Like we don't in the moment think, oh man, our guys are going to have to work on these race cars, or their guys are going to have to work on these race cars. Like I've never in a moment thought, you think about it after, and then you realize when you talk to your guys, you're like, oh man, sorry, I'll take y'all to lunch. Sorry about that. And but in the moment,
Does that make up for it?
It's no, it doesn't, not at all. But at least it's nice.
Yeah.
There's intent, right? Like it's the thought that counts. But I think more so, like, we are all selfish as race car drivers. It's only us out there. In our minds, like we never think of the fan, or at least me, like I never think of really any ever other than just me and everybody else that's out here. And I think, if an NBA player gets pushed over, or like he gets, kind of shouldered a little bit or plays rough, all of a sudden that sets the tempo of, all right, next time we're lined up, I'm going to play rougher. And it just starts, building up. And then by the end of the game, they're fighting, or the first foul, it sets it off, right? The second it crosses that line, then it sets it off, and then they're throwing punches, or, then the whole team's brawling. And in racing, like, it's sort of the same thing. If once you get hit, then you get hit, then you hit them back. And, it just kind of sets the tempo of, like, if you get hit 6 times, well, your 6 times equals 1 big time for me back. It just kind of equates to that per se. And I think, there's no referees, there's no fouls. And in the moment, you just feel like you're just playing another sport. You're human. And it's no different than basketball, baseball, whatever. Just you're using these race cars. And then once everything calms down, then it kind of sets in and you're like, oh, maybe I look dumb. I don't think anybody has ever paid anybody back and said, yeah, I'm proud of that. I feel good about that.
Never.
Never in the history of me. I've had a few paybacks, but never in the history of me.
Never feels good.
No, it never feels good. It never, but in the moment, it feels like you have to do it. Or I don't know about y'all, but like for me, it feels like if I don't, I'm going to get just pushed over, because there's guys that I've noticed in Cup that's made it really tough for me per se, because I see them that they get bullied on the racetrack. Like the second they, might be having a good day, but they line up on a restart, I guarantee they're going to lose 5-10 spots, or they take 2 tires. There is no shot they're going to be not 25th by the time, like, just because they get bullied. And trucks, it's even more, but that's more inexperience. But like for Cup, I've noticed it's because they're very conservative and they don't want to crash, and they're just there to run. They're wanting to run all the laps. They're not wanting to create any issue, and they're not wanting to be aggressive, or they've crashed already earlier in the year, or they're just trying not to crash, and then they get put in this spot and they just get taken advantage of. And I'm not going to name any names, but like there's a few of them
Yeah.
that are like that, and I've been able to take advantage of them already. But you notice that and you're like, man, I don't want to get taken advantage of. Or you hear these stories of, in Cup, like very recent, I'm not going to name any names or anything, but I've heard for 5 weeks, the second this guy, like, because he's been used up, and it's been on Twitter, he's been used up a handful of weeks in a row, and he went over to him and said, the second I see you, you're getting crashed. And that's exactly what happened. So like that kind of sets the mind zone for me. I was like, man, like, I don't want to be the pushover. I don't want to be like, so like it's a very fine line of not being a pushover, but also too being respectful by pushing back, but not overdoing it, because then you overdo it, then you look stupid. Then the narrative's completely swapped, and now you look dumb, or they didn't see the 18 times in advance that equals 18 small ones versus one big one. And you just look like you just started it all, or you're the one that ended it, and rather than just using your words. And because I've never got out of the race car too either, and went and talked to somebody and felt like it was going to change anything. Like we are all learned by actions. So learn by actions is, ruin his day or hurt his day, or just sideline him for a little bit, or whatever the case may be. Just don't let him run a good lap, whatever the case may be. That is a big punishment for race car drivers, that if we feel like we gave that back, then something might be done about it, even though the second after we do it, we're all like, okay, well, that I didn't really actually have to do that, or that was
So,
dumb, or that.
Yeah, and I want to. There's a lot to unpack here, and first of all, I just want to say, you live here on the Money Lap and on podcast form for those listening. You've been one of the most open drivers I've heard in a long time, and I do appreciate that, because you just taken people into your mental space in a race car. And one of the things I want to unpack there is you mentioned the boxing mentality, that basically going 100%, right? And I think that is something that is newer in modern day NASCAR than it was. You are also the first driver I've ever heard describe the mid pack of the Cup Series as being able to take advantage of some people. It's usually the toughest racing you'll ever do in your life. What did I tell you before Martinsville? If you're 25th or around 25th at the Cup Series, and Martinsville is the hardest race you'll ever do in your life. Did it live up to it?
100%. 100%. I was tongue out, and I'm like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to
do. It's the toughest shit there is, because it's just you're in a position where you're not only racing the cars around you who are all pissed because they're there, right? You're also racing to get away from the leader who's coming so fast. So you're in this like double race that you'll never experience. Maybe Bristol.
So what I've noticed with Cup is like 15th to 20th is like some of the hardest rate. It's so dependent. So like 15th to 20th is a lot of times there's either guys that are winning races like multiple times a week, and they're just trying to finish the race. So they're not going to race you that hard. So they'll just let you go. Or those are guys that are having a super good day, and so they're trying super hard, like me. Like 15th is a big day for me, so you got that kind of mixed. But like the second it becomes like 21st or like 22nd, it is game on, no matter who is back there, because they are all mad to be there. Where like if they're like 15th to like 20th, they're still thinking, oh, we get adjustment, we can maybe get to 12th or 10th, and put together a day. Like none of them, like a lot of them don't really care to be 15th to 20th, but nobody wants to be 21st or worse. They just are game on.
Yeah, there's no bonuses for top 25 usually. So it's it even goes a little deeper in the fact that they're having a bad day, they're not getting a bonus. This isn't it's just the worst type of Cup day you can have. Too.
That's all I cared about when I was like, man, like I was like, there's a bonus if I run top 25 here. Like what position? I like when I first started running for Legacy, I'm like, hey, what spot am I in? They're like 27th, but I'm like, I need 2 more. I gotta.
Need more.
Ah.
Need more. So I do want to, I want to continue going down what I was saying before, and that you go 100%. You've obviously had these altercations, you've had these run-ins. You and I have even had them together. And you mentioned you don't like the narrative that it's Carson Hocevar, budding superstar, super fast, but right. What do you feel when, and not to bring up bad memories, but I feel like this has to be asked, when you see Dale Earnhardt Jr., Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, people who have won cup races, a Hall of Famer, a future Hall of Famer, fighting for the championship, who have negative things to say about your driving. Now, mind you, a driver who also drove for Nice just a year ago was probably in a similar position and being judged for his driving. Does that make you, there's an old saying that there's no such thing as bad press. Does it make you feel bad about it? Do you think you sit there in quiet moments and go, I'm here trying to push it. That's who I am. So be it. They'll either come to my side or not. Or do you look at those comments and see those comments and think, I've got to change?
A little bit of all of it, right? Like, I mean, going to Ross, right? Like when I came in here, I would specifically ask, I'm like, how does, like, everybody, when Ross was running in 2019, I was watching it. I was like, man, like everybody's like scared of this guy. I'm like, nobody wants to even like be around him, and they'll like let him go, or like when he hit, like he'll take advantage of people and they'll never hit back. And I've kind of noticed that, and I've probably embraced how Ross had raced because I studied him. Like I'd go watch his Martinsville races in trucks, or watch his footage, or talk to him when I first started running for Nice and for truck races, because I'm like, when I was a rookie running a part-time, like I got to be on the front row at Martinsville, on different strategy, and they shipped me the first corner, like gone, spun around, and like I got back to like 8th, and then they shipped me again. And I'm like, man, like I'm just trying to run, I'm just trying to finish here. Like I would have let you go, but I was like, man, like I don't want to get pushed over. So I'd be, I've tried to adapt some of Ross his style, but also to kind of create my own style that I've thought of being 100% and trying to find all the gaps and what people overlook in the race car and what they overlook. Maybe if I'm not the fast, I've always looked at it, if I'm not the fastest for one lap, maybe if I just go 100 for 100 laps and they're going fast, but then they back it down themselves, well, I'll be faster than them if they slow themselves down. But the Dale Jr. comments gets me the most, right? Like I wasn't a Tyler Reddick fan, I wasn't a Denny Hamlin fan, but I mean, that'd be like if you're a basketball player and Michael Jordan said, man, you're super good, but you like are a nuisance on the basketball court, basically. Or, Derek Jeter, if you were a Yankees fan and Derek Jeter's like, man, that kid could hit hard, but when he doesn't hit hard, he flops around and falls down and can't even get to first base. And I'm like, man, like that's your idol, right? So, but there's, how I look at it, right? Like I don't need to, there's not a time clock on this. There's not a time clock on life and their opinions. 1 week everybody's gonna love you, and then you make one move and everybody can hate you, right? And that's the way the sport can ever be. You could take someone out, right, that is hated and they don't hate you, but the second you take anybody out that is loved more than you, they all hate you. And that could just change as it goes. So I'm not like, oh, I need to fix this now. I got an off season, and two, like I can't slow myself down. I just got to figure out how to stay as fast as I am and limit the dumb mistakes, right? Like I'm still going to make mistakes. I'm still going to push the envelope. But like, I feel like the difference is that I don't get the benefit of doubt, right? For me. So that's part that I'm now struggling with, is there was a difference between doing it with an intent and just being dumb or being overconfident or being delusional and thinking that move would work and whatever, to just messing up.
What's the messing up? What's the messing up? Is it
like
turning someone on the straightaway? That's messing up.
No,
or
that's
or
that's
intent?
bad.
Okay.
Like I think
I'm
Phoenix, right?
curious.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I think like Phoenix, like my intent was to throw a slide job, cross his bumper, and get to and use up all the racetrack because we didn't get a right. We both drove each other down. He didn't make a good corner. I thought he was going to continue to slide up the racetrack, so I was going to slide across his back bumper and try to push the 52. And
Got it.
he made the corner more than I thought. And actually, he gets a little loose the second I go to cross and overdid it just a little bit. Didn't hit right front to left rear, hit front to corner and just picked him up. And that's why he went around because he was already loose, right? That's the intent was to cross his bumper, be on the limit of it, not go in there, wipe him out. Because I mean, what was that going to achieve? I didn't think we were going to win the championship without me being as close. I was just trying to get as close as possible. That wasn't a move of last lap. If I hit him and spin him out, we're gonna win, right? Like there was no like solution to that, right? So there's just a game of that, of just messing up versus the intent. And with me now, I have to balance the benefit of the doubt, right? Like I'm not gonna get the if I just, we race it like the Ross thing, right? Like the big joke was that everybody was put on Twitter that he would be blamed for anything. Like if there was a crash on I-77, oh, Ross must have been on there, So there's just kind of just balancing all that.
I think I'm going to go back and kind of repeat what I said earlier, though. After thanks for sharing your thoughts, by the way, because those are really good thoughts. The comments about Dale Jr. and things there. Because going back to what I said earlier, I don't. That stuff, it just doesn't matter. I mean, it's just what matters is you racing the best that you know to race and putting yourself in victory lane. Like that's really what matters. And I said this about Ross when everybody was criticizing Ross earlier in the year, and supposedly, did Chevy sit him down or did Justin talk to him? And it's just like, it doesn't matter. He's as long as he's winning, he's gonna be fine. That's just like, and my advice to you on it too is like, as long as you're still doing all right on track, you're gonna make these mistakes. Your intentions behind them. Then that's okay. I got no problems with that. And then, the cherry on top is just be authentic. And as long as you're authentic, I wouldn't worry too much about what people say or the swings at what people think, because if you're being real, people will end up loving that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, the more people get to know you, they will end up loving the authenticity. What you don't want, right, is what Corey Haim did after the race, in Phoenix, and try to play this like cat and mouse game in an interview, being coy about did he do it, did he not? And I know that there's like implications there of NASCAR. You're not trying to admit to things, but there was probably a way more authentic version of himself that's out there that could have answered those questions instead of trying to be snarky and coy, right? And I think that when you make these mistakes, when you have these incidents, as long as you're just real and authentic, the fans, the people, the talking heads out there, and including Dale Jr., right? Like I know, we all love Dale Jr., and I'm not like trying to step into dangerous waters for myself on this.
Where are you going here, bud? Whoa.
Whoa. But like Dale, Dale is a highly respectable figure in our sport, and he absolutely should be considered, and and does everything that you said, your feelings on hearing Dale Jr. say those things is fair and right. But like Dale still has his own motivations in the sport. He owns a race team. He has a podcast that he's recording hours of content a week where he has to talk about racing, and things are going to come up in his head and he's going to say them. He's on TV and has to talk
What's
about
that
racing
like?
a lot. So, it's maybe it's tough to hear those things, but like, I'm not wouldn't even worry about what Dale has to say, because you know in your heart what you're trying to accomplish out there on the racetrack, and the bow that you can wrap around it is just, as long as I'm my authentic self and I'm unapologetic about it, I'm probably gonna be all right in the long run. And if to validate that, to totally wrap a bow around that, look at the most successful people in all sports, and Dale Earnhardt, those are real authentic people, that just were unapologetic about who they were, and they're loved for it. Dale Jr. included, right? Like, that guy, the reason he's so lovable is because he's just real. So, yeah, it's I as long as you maintain that, I think you'll be all right.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, I think we noted you've been very open. It's awesome. We appreciate it. I guess, to flip it forward here, you are going to the NASCAR Cup Series in 2024 as a full-time driver. Pretty amazing moment, right? As young as you are and as early in your career as you are. So, putting all that stuff aside, what is a successful year next year? What is the offseason like for Carson Hocevar, a young driver going to the NASCAR Cup Series with Spire Motorsports? Take us through what this next couple of months leading the Daytona 500 is like, and then what you want to achieve out of next year. What you think is possible? What would be a result you say, yep, that was all successful?
I feel like there's a lot, obviously, between just Spire as a whole. They're moving shops, they're moving, they got a bunch of new hires, new people, an extra car, now a whole truck program with multiple trucks that they have to run. So that aside, just for me, luckily they just notified me who my crew chief's gonna be Monday. So get to start working with him and feel really good about him. Someone I already have somewhat of a relationship with, so I'm super excited about that. So that part's not going to be too bad, just because I don't have to learn somebody completely new that at least I've had some little relationship with them. So I'm excited about that part, and just excited to just go learn. And luckily, where I got to race in the playoffs, a lot of the tracks are pretty, like, the tracks we go to twice. So like Phoenix, I get to go run. Martinsville, I get to go run somewhat early in the year. Bristol, somewhat early in the year. And then obviously 2 super speedways. I luckily got to run one of those. So that kind of throws for a mix. But Vegas, that one too. So like there's a lot of racetracks where I get to just go look at my own SMT and look at my own notes, and look at what Spire had, look at what I had when I was with Legacy, setup and balance wise, see how the Trackhouse Alliance was going to work with Zane's car, see how the Hendrick Alliance is going to work with Spire, and see what all the areas we get with that. Now I'm going to be on a race team that I'm going to be allowed to go drive the sim for, and then go drive that car. With Legacy, we ran 5th at Bristol, and then we couldn't run any more sim. So that was kind of interesting that I wasn't able to run any more sim time in the Chevy sim. We still ran okay, but obviously then all of a sudden you get some momentum, and then you're resetting a little bit, and just practice was kind of tough, and just knocking out a start balance. I just felt like we were always late in the game, but just excited about that part. I don't know about it results wise. I think winning Rookie of the Year would be a good start for me.
Definitely.
It's this pretty strong battle, or pretty strong group with Josh Berry, me, and Zane. So looking forward to that. If we can,
That's
win
a real
that.
one. That's a real battle.
That's a real,
some of these
and
are
it's
ceremonial.
a battle within house, and then battle with a guy stepping into a legend of the sports car. So that'll be very noticeable if I could be able to win that. Obviously 2 prospects that are super high in the sport when they're coming into Cup. I don't know, like my unrealistic mountain goal is to run top 20 in points.
Whoa.
I think that's above expectations by a lot. But I have that listed as my, just my goal. Like it'd be way above to say I'm going to win a race, right? Like it'd be way above to. It's unrealistic to say, oh, I need to get this many top 5s, this many top 10s. But top 20 in points is the mountain, whether it takes 1 year, 2 years, or 3, 4. I luckily have a multi-year deal, so I could put that goal and know that if I don't get that year 1, we're building towards that for year 2.
I love that.
But
That's
we're
a
I
big
love
one.
that goal. Parker, I'll let you finish up and give him the question of the day. But I just want to make a point that I love that goal because I've been told that when it comes to goal setting and trying to set a vision for what you're trying to work towards, that you want it to be something that seems unobtainable, but isn't entirely impossible, right? So maybe your goal isn't to win 10 races and win the championship, but top 20 in points is like, maybe for that team, absolutely not. We haven't ever run top 20 in points, or we haven't come within 200 points of finishing top 20 in points. But it's actually not entirely impossible to think about, right? You could win a race. You could, you could steal some stage points or find some good strategies to get yourself there. It's not entirely impossible. And that's what I like about that.
Yeah, I thought that was everybody that I told in my group about that. That's just like not like either on the management side or whatever. They're like, dude, like, what are you talking about? Like, no, stop. I'm like, well, why would I show up there and like think, oh, I'm gonna run like 31st in points or like 28th? I was like, well, like I gotta set my goals somewhere. I was like, what am I gonna set? One top 10 or like just a random number out of the thin air that top 10s? I was like, without a loose wheel, I run maybe top 5 at Bristol. I was like, oh, I already have a top 5 heading into my cup year, and that car was 32nd in points when I got into it. I was like, so like you could have a good car no matter. I mean, all the cars are the same, and Legacy's not getting good motors. They're behind on aero. They're not getting any sim knowledge at all. Like they're completely pen and paper and their own models and their own data. And we were running top 5. I was like, well, now I'm going to get in a car that has Hendrick motors with a Hendrick alliance, with a Trackhouse alliance within our company. And we get to go to the simulator and go run laps and build our own models and have more than a year to do it. I'm like, man, like I feel like we'd be okay. I mean, my average finish, if you take away, is only 24th with 3 crashes, and if you took away Gateway, we probably run 16th to 15th running there when we break. And you take away Talladega because that one's just not that one doesn't really have an effect on speed, and we crashed. Our average finish is 19th.
Wow.
And that's including running 31st at Vegas, and that's including crashing at Vegas.
That's wild, man.
So like I'm like, I think 20th is somewhat a realistic goal. And I mean, my modern idol is Kyle Larson, right? And I looked up his rookie year and he was 17th, and I originally said 17th, and then I looked at that, I was like, oh, he was 17th, that's my goal. And they're like, can you back it down just a little? I'm like, all right, I'll say top 20. But that's what I have, like, in my bedroom, like top 20 with a little check, like a little box, and hopefully check it off within a year, 2 years. I mean, I would hope eventually I can check that thing off.
Landon was nicer than me. I would have called that ambitious. But you know what? I like ambitious, and I think it fits your persona and your driving style perfectly. Before we let you go, this has been awesome, by the way. Thank you so much for coming on here, man, and being so open about what's going on in your life and the way you tackle racing. I have to ask you the question of the day, and that is, with the Las Vegas Grand Prix coming up this upcoming weekend, we're asking everyone on this show, who do they believe or predict will finish second in the race?
Finish second. Who's been said? Who's been said so far?
So Ferrari and Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz have basically been the go-to.
The
there.
go-to.
Yeah, so far.
I'm gonna go McLaren,
Mm.
and I'm gonna go not Lando. I'm gonna go Oscar.
Oscar Piastri. Got it. That's a good one. Our former Red Bull F1 engineer Blake Kenzie was on earlier, said they should be fast. So that
Yeah,
could
I was
be a
gonna
really
go.
good pick.
I was gonna go Lando, but I feel like Oscar is kind of like he's got a lot of speed. And I feel like for someplace new like this, I feel like he might. I'm not big into F1. I kind of get into tidbits a little bit, but I kind of follow McLaren a little bit. So that's my pick.
You've had some pretty busy Sundays. You'll have a bunch more of those next year. So we'll give you a pass.
Who
Hey,
was your
bud,
pick,
appreciate
Parker?
you coming on. What's that?
Who's your pick? Who was your pick?
My pick, I'm going to reveal it later in the show. So you
Oh,
can't,
okay.
can't give it up.
I'll
we got about
I'll
another
keep-
45
okay.
minutes here. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Dude, don't blow up our spot, man. Come on. Hey,
I
by
didn't
the way,
know. I didn't know.
if you want to announce your crew chief here live on the Money Lap, by all means, we'll take that, but I don't want to get you in trouble. So whoever that is. Yeah.
It'd probably get me in trouble.
Yep. We'll let you hold on to that for now. Man, appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. Really do.
Thanks,
Best
guys.
of luck in the
Appreciate
offseason and next year.
Thanks, guys. See you, Landon. See you, Parker.
See you, buddy.
See you. Landon, we talked about the possibility of a break. I think this is the perfect time. We have Jeff Gluck coming up here in just about a couple minutes. Should we take a
Live
3-minute
on the
break?
street.
Yeah, live on the Las Vegas streets. We've been talking about it all show. Jeff Gluck, our man on the ground for The Athletic. He is there. He's been going around to all the different hospitalities. He's been experiencing the different media things. He's going to be able to tell us exactly what the vibe is in Vegas, maybe even give us the grip level of the racetrack if we want that, by touching it, of course, with his hand, the grip-o-meter. But yeah, we're going to have that information. But we need that 3-minute break. You can all look at our great graphics that we put together here of our production team. This has somehow gone so smoothly. We will most definitely blow it up in the next 45 minutes. So don't tune out. Stick around for just 3 minutes here. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to use the bathroom. Landon's going to have more lunch, and we'll be back.
I already
talking
ate my
all
lunch while he was.
Oh, perfect.
I ate my
Cool.
lunch during some of Carson's monologues.
We'll be right back. Break. Come on, Zach. Welcome back. The Money Lap Live here for the last segment. 1 3-minute break in 2 hours and 15 minutes in a 3-hour show.
I mean, this is commitment, my man. Absolutely commitment. And speaking of commitment, you want to know who is committed to the sport and the community of diecast collectibles? Check out SpoilerDiecast.com, one of the largest inventories in the industry. They have over 800 unique products currently in stock, including diecast and apparel offerings for NASCAR, dirt sprint cars, IndyCar, F1, and with their pre-order system in place, you can pretty much get your hands on the latest diecast releases without the long wait. What's even better, all orders ship same or next day. They offer free shipping on orders over $20. Use promo code MONEYLAP, get that free shipping and 5% off on all orders. That's right, 5% off. But they also still have I think a couple more signed Landon Cassill diecast. And oh, by the way, you can get your championship apparel from all 3 series. So Ryan Blaney, Ben Rhodes, and Cole Custer, who joined us earlier. SpoilerDiecast.com. Check them out. All your diecast racing needs. Boom. Ad
And
read.
we should
Got
give
it.
We should give
Done.
one other shout out. Yes, love it. Go check out Spoiler Diecast. Also, if you are a subscriber to our newsletter, we launched a referral program, which at just 10 referrals, meaning you get 10 of your friends out there to subscribe to the Money Lap newsletter, you will get a diecast from Spoiler Diecast. We also have where you can even get to a $100 gift card from Spoiler Diecast, F1 merch, NASCAR merch. Go check it out. That's themoneylap.com. Subscribe and then tell your friends about it and win cool stuff. So it's one of the best and coolest stuff in motorsports 3 times to your inbox. Speaking of which, we promised that we'd have a guest live from the Las Vegas Strip, the Las Vegas racetrack. That is the Grand Prix that's happening this weekend. If you're just joining us, yes, we've been on here for many hours talking to many in the motorsports world, from Blake Hensley, who's a former Red Bull F1 engineer, to Cole Custer, the 2023 Xfinity Series champion, as Landon alluded to Carson Hocevar, who's going to the NASCAR Cup Series next year. And now our final guest on the Money Lap Live is none other than the man who used to end his name with .com. That is Jeff Gluck from The Athletic, live from Las Vegas. Thank you for being here, Jeff. We need you to take us into the feeling, the atmosphere, the ambiance of what's happening, what some are considering the biggest off-track motorsports event ever. I just made that up right now. But it does look like that. It looks like everything off the track is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I just finished writing my first. I'm going to be doing like a daily diary here every day. Excuse my voice, by the way. It's already
Typically what
Vegas
daily
froggy.
diaries are, Jeff.
Daily diaries, yeah.
Where you write them every day.
Don't worry, I'm losing mine as well. We've all got the postseason sickness. So
Yeah, well, that's Vegas will enhance mine. So, but I was trying to sort through it this morning. Like, how do I feel about this so far? Because I got here and I was really nervous. I was really anxious about, like, how am I even going to get around? Like, I'm staying at the Mirage, so I'm right here on the strip, but like there's grandstands right in front of my hotel, and you can't cross the street in any of the crosswalks because they're shut down for the track. So like, they have some of the bridges, but the bridges are not as common, and they're not as, they're more spread out, I guess. And you hear all this stuff about the workers, like how are they going to get to the hotels? Like, am I going to, like, can I eat? Am I going to be able to find food? Like, just sort of the basics, I guess. And I don't have a ticket or anything. I don't have a credential. My assignment here is to just go around the city and write about what I see. So I'm like, can I even move around? So I was anxious about it. But then honestly, as soon as I started walking around yesterday, I was like, okay, all right. Like it's set up like a street course, or at least what I perceive to be a street course based on, Long Beach and places like that, where, there's walkways, there's signage. I mean, you're walking on the strip and it's like paddock this way, like, you're like, oh, well, I mean, they've set it up like a street course and it looks like a street course. I mean, it's sort of like, wow, they've actually pulled this off. That's sort of my first impression. Like, I think they've done it. Like, I don't know how the race is going to be, but they have set up the track to look like a racetrack, and it looks beautiful at night. The lights were on last night. I was like, okay, this could be good. Like, again, is it going to be a shit show? Probably. Like, the traffic's going to be terrible and all this stuff, and I'm sure there's going to be those elements of it. But I mean, I think what you said, Parker, about like the biggest motorsports sort of event off track. I mean, what has ever been more hyped or bigger than this in terms of, like, I mean, they're taking over the strip and racing down at 212 miles an hour. It's insane.
You last night were at a deal, according to your social media, for Mercedes with your buddy Jordan Bianchi from The Athletic. And I've been reading some of your stuff, and it's awesome seeing your social postings. So thanks for doing that. Like, that event alone would be an incredible activation for a race team or race series, even, right? To have had those cars. And I think we were trying to grab some video of it. Maybe our production team can find it as you're describing it. But basically, the Mercedes event was the cars going down like a runway or some sort of track. I don't even know where you were. And there was drones. And then eventually it's Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. I mean, how many people were there? Hundreds? Famous people? It was like, what is going on?
Yeah, it was. I guess this is somewhat common in F1 world. I don't know. It doesn't happen to us in NASCAR very much. Like, I got an invite like first week of October, and it was very, very vague. And it was just like, come join us out in the desert for this Mercedes IWC watch event. Bring a coat for the desert chill. And like, there was really no details on like what it was. But I'm trying to take advantage of every single invite I can get this week, right? So like, I'm like, well, I'll go to that. Sure. Like, I don't know what it is, but so yeah, Jordan and I went, and like, we're just standing around. I thought it was like a media thing, honestly. Like, I thought it was just gonna be like the media there, and maybe like they'd have George and Lewis come out, or they'd talk about like, oh, the race is gonna be good this weekend. Like, it was like celebrities and influencers and all this stuff. I'm like, what am I doing here? Beautiful people, and yeah, like, I mean, they had these drones were going up and like lighting the path for the cars. Have you guys ever heard of Speed Vegas? I guess that's where it was. It's like
okay,
south of the South Point. on the 15,
Oh,
like
I
way
know.
down there. I had never,
Interesting.
yeah, it's some sort of like high performance track, and I think they just took it over and made it into like some sort of desert pop up village with all this. I mean, it was crazy. But I'm like, I was saying to Jordan, like, how much do you think this costs? Like the drones alone, like hundreds of drones, they were going in like the shape of a watch and cars and like literally following, like lighting Lewis and George's way as they're driving at night, on this track. And like the court, I'm just like, what is this? Like, this is crazy. So yeah, I can't, and that's like Tuesday of race week, right? Like what else is going to happen this week? I just, the amount of activation and planning and parties and branding and just everything that's happening this week is just, it really boggles my mind. I don't even know how to process it,
The cost thing. Landon and I keep going to that for a activation of this level. What like this probably that one activation is bigger than all of them combined.
I mean, dude, there was like they had these crates, and one of the crates was you had to put your phone into a like a sleeve, and they locked the sleeve. And there was some Mercedes AMG car in there that had never been seen to the public yet. And people were like lining up to go in there and see it. So we actually, this is kind of embarrassing, but we were like, let's get in line for this. Like, this must be cool. Like everybody else is in line. So they put our phones in like this little sleeve or whatever and locked it. And our phone started like vibrating. We lasted like 30 seconds, but we got out of line. They're like, can you just unlock our phones? Like, no, I can't do this. I can't wait in a line with my phone locked up for this long. I don't need to see the card that bad. But they had like this. Have you ever heard of Sakai? It's like a fashion brand.
I can't think so. No, I don't know. That's a Landon question.
Some Japanese fashion brand. They had a pop-up store inside of a crate, and like the celebrities would be let in there to buy this exclusive. What do you call it? It was like a drop. Yes, sorry. This is how uncool I am. They had this drop, and you could only buy it there. It was being premiered there, and so like Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad and like James Marsden, everybody's watching them through the windows. They're going out and they're like, I'm gonna buy this. And you're just like, what? It was just like you could build your own IWC watch, and it was just like, what? It was so foreign to me, like the whole thing. I just felt so like. It was like watching a movie of like what I would think the fashion world and trend, influencer world is all about, but I'm not in that. So it was just weird,
What's the
makes you wonder how could they?
Oh, go ahead.
How did this possibly all be monetized? That is, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's insane.
I think there's so much
like
money flowing through all of it that, yeah, do they care? I mean, I think so much of it is just like we want to be associated with famous people and influencers and the high end stuff. Like it's going to cost so much money to do this, but like we're going to put on a show. Like, do you know Jordan Woods, like the Kylie Jenner best friend? She was there last night. Like, well, I mean, you have Jordan Woods at your event. She has like 12 million Instagram followers, stuff like that. Like, it's just, I guess that's the game,
Right.
What's the crowd like? What are you seeing so far? I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about the ticket prices dropping 60% or more, the hotel prices. Is there a lot of people there? I mean, it's Vegas. That's a hard thing to say because there's not.
I mean, maybe it's because it's a Tuesday, but like I had no traffic yesterday. I took 4 different Ubers, never sat in any traffic. Never really had any problem walking around the strip. The casinos last night, like walking through, it was like kind of empty-ish, half empty. I think there's 2 things. Maybe number one, the heart of the crowd's not here yet. Maybe. Yeah. And as a part of that, I think they priced a ton of people out, right? Like people saw the ticket prices, $1,500, $2,500 for a grandstand ticket. I'm not going to go there and spend hotel money and food and whatever, travel, airfare. Like a normal person can't afford that. So they're not going to go. And then you had the other people, like let's call them like the normal Vegas people, who were going to go there for a bachelorette party or a guy's trip. They're seeing all this. They're like, well, I'm not going to Vegas that weekend. That's insane. Like you can't even do anything. You can't cross the street, right? So like, why? So I think you lost those people. So I wonder if it's actually, and maybe I'm wrong. And by the time the race gets here, it'll be, filled to the brim like Vegas always is, and it'll be a weekend too. But like, I don't know. It seems this is like the emptiest I've sort of felt Vegas, I feel like in a while. But it was a Tuesday also.
That's what I was
so
going to ask. Like, you've been to Vegas on a Tuesday. We've all been to, for industry things and whatnot. We've all been to Vegas on a Tuesday for some reason. Does it feel more dead than a normal Tuesday in Vegas? And did F1 sort of taking over Vegas make it to where the only people that are in Vegas right now are there for F1, which could be a net loss for the regular Vegas traffic?
U2 shut down, right? Bono shut down the. They
a
shut
lot
down
of
the
the
sphere.
closed. The shows are closed this week. Like the residencies, they're not.
It's a great point.
They're gone. Like there was this McLaren event last night at the Virgin Hotel, which used to be the Hard Rock. And I went over there, and you had to walk through like the casino to get there, and like I was like, is this casino open? Like there was like nobody sitting at the slots at all. There was like race team personnel, walking through and stuff, but it was like, where are the people? And I thought maybe it's hard to get to, so they're not here, but it was so bizarre. Yeah. So I guess it's inconclusive, Landon. Like, I don't know yet. I'd like to see how today goes, to see if the crowds get bigger or, but I haven't even left my hotel room yet today. I'm trying. So, the schedule is so freaking weird here. Like, they're practicing at like 1 a.m. They're qualifying at midnight local, all the stuff. Like I'm trying to get my body to stay up later. Cause then a lot of the events are after that too. Right. Like, it's like, oh yeah, like they'll get off track at like 1 or 2. And then they're going to have this party at 3. You're like, okay. So I'm trying to like do like a graveyard shift type thing. Like I tried staying up till 1:30 last night, and I got up this morning to write, but like it's almost noon here. I'm still in my hotel. So I haven't even ventured out there yet today, but it's a weird, like the media sessions are, I think they start tonight at like 10 p.m. local, like the driver interviews and stuff. Like it's so, but the Europeans are like Lando was saying at this event last night. He's like, well, this is afternoon for us right now. Like, I think they're doing one of those like Singapore type schedules where they don't adjust their bodies and they're already on, they sort of stay on their time. It's the Americans who would have a little bit harder time adjusting, I think.
Yeah. So what's the math on that? So I guess the 1 a.m. is like the morning. It's like I'm trying to figure it all out. Right. And like we had a Red Bull F1 engineer, former F1 engineer, Blake Hensley on here earlier talking about this for the crew guys, where they'll get out of there like 4 or 5 a.m. and the worst thing they can do is see the sunlight before they go to bed. So like it's similar to Singapore, I guess, and how they've done this. So it's very unique in that sense. Like for those events, and you mentioned you want to go to everything you can, is there also a ton of overlap, or do you feel like you have a sense that they've done a good job of like working together, or is this just like chaos trying to run to all these different things that everyone's trying to do all at the same time for the same crowd?
I think there's going to be a lot of overlap. I personally haven't gotten invited to that much yet. I'm still trying to cast a wide net and let people know that I'm looking for stuff. But stuff has started
help
to
them out.
In. I'm now getting sort of my first conflicts of like, oh, well, I said I was going to go to this thing, but that's also at the same time. And it'll be like, well, this party has like Marshmallow, and this party has Metro Boomin, and this party has, and you're like, they've all hired like every single person they can hire. It feels like every potential musician and EDM artist is playing these random parties every night. And yeah, I don't know what crowd. I don't know if like the influencer crowd, like, are they getting every single invite, or are they being targeted by a certain group? Or I don't know how you. Yeah. I would imagine they're probably being targeted by everybody if their name lands on some list, right?
Are you doing your own event, the Tweet Up? Will we see a Tweet Up announced?
I would think not. I moved the media hotel is this place called like the Tuscany, which I'd never
Mm.
heard of until yesterday. But
Nope.
the media, it's off the strip. It's near the paddock and stuff. And that was at the time, the rates there were like better than, like $400 a night or something, whatever it was. It was way better than you get on the strip when they first did it. So all the media people booked there. And I moved to, because I don't have a credential for the race. So I'm like, well, why do I have to be at the media hotel? I'm not going to the paddock anyway. So my stay at the Mirage here is $1,000 cheaper than it is now to stay. The hotel rates have plummeted so much. And they gave me yesterday. I checked in. I mean, I'm not like a high roller. I can see the strip from my room. Like,
Oh, wow.
How? Like for NASCAR weekend, they wouldn't give me a room here at the same hotel. And I was like,
by the way, yeah,
So-
Landon's had the same thumbs up for the listeners. By the way, Jeff Gluck
Wait,
just
are
got
you
the
on a
computer
new
thumbs up.
MacBook?
yeah.
Do you have a
How
fairly
does this
new Mac-
happen?
It's-
Yeah.
We're
I
all
don't- what
wondering.
was
why
I
they-
have no
Is that
idea,
like your
but I
birthday
get these-
balloons?
Yeah,
It's the same
It's the
thing.
birthday
Yeah.
balloon thing.
Right.
Go back
right.
when we're done with this whole stream. We're gonna be done.
Okay.
We're wrapping the show up in about 20 minutes. When we're done with this whole stream, go back and watch the opening scene of this show. And as soon as I come on, I make some kind of hand gesture, and like balloons come up behind me, and
Fireworks.
I have no idea what it is. Something to do with my computer.
Wow. Oh, you think it's a Mac
And you and I
thing?
must have the
thought it
same
was-
computer because
It's a Mac
Huh.
thing.
It
I have
happened to me.
I'm,
It happened to me the other day when I was doing on a Zoom with Jordan. There you go. What?
we got it again, folks. We just had balloons.
Are you sure Sonny's
know,
not
that's
doing
what I
that
did.
to us?
congratulations.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, there's no way to
I
make it
can't-
happen. It decides. It is you have been chosen at that time by the Apple universe to be celebrated in either balloons, fireworks, or a thumbs up, and they like what you're doing. This is like
Okay.
Black Mirror stuff right here, basically. Jeez. So
Crazy.
back to what you're doing
Sorry,
there.
I got totally off. Yeah.
No, I did too. That's I mean, there's nothing more interesting than these random pop-ups on the screen. So like when you look at all that's happening and with this F1 explosion, we're all, some are saying peak F1 right here, and Landon and I've both kind of been on that. This is probably the epitome of as big as this all gets. What can the other motorsports take from it? What are you seeing? What are you feeling? What are you thinking you're going to see over the next 4 or 5 days? You're going to be like, what NASCAR, what IndyCar, what these American, institutions in motorsports could learn from what F1 has done here is what? What can we take from this?
I was talking to Jordan last night on the bus to this thing, and we were like, can you imagine if the Cup drivers were asked to come into a city on the Tuesday before a race and then just stay there all week? Like, they would freaking riot. They would if a drivers union had not been formed yet or whatever, like that would finally form a drivers. They would be so mad that they were being asked to do so much and do so much media and so like whatever, like seriously, like and I think that is something that NASCAR in particular has really lost in recent years, especially going to 2-day weekends, and having NASCAR arrange it so that, hey, like we'll even have a late start on a Saturday so that you guys and the teams can fly in that morning. Like a lot of the Cup drivers at some weekends are in market for like a day and a half essentially. And I don't want to sound like Eddie Gossage ripping Denny for not coming to his market or whatever, but like, and I think, when Bob went on DBC a month ago or whatever, and he used this what an idiot on the NASCAR industry for not having like a content day, not having some sort of fan event day. That's what all these guys are doing. Like, I mean, first of all, they're still not even on track till tomorrow, and they were all here yesterday. And I'm not saying that NASCAR needs to go to, have the drivers go into Pocono on a Wednesday and stay there all week. I get that that's not practical, but like, there's got to be some sort of balance between, okay, like we're not on track as much. Let's make Friday. And they said they were going to do this at first, and they just never did it. But like, let's do all our media that day, or let's do fan events that day. Like, you don't even have to be on track to give some value to the fans and get people, interacting and showing personality. We talked about, you guys, the whole star power thing, right? Like on your podcast.
Yep.
And I think I went to this, again, not to harp on it, but I went to this thing last night. One of the few invites I got again. So I was like, I'll go. It was a McLaren thing with Jack Daniels, right? And it was Lando and Oscar, and they were there for an hour. And they did a Q&A. They did a meet and greet. They had a mocktail competition where they had to make their own mocktails or whatever, and everybody was watching. And then they passed out the real cocktails to the people that had gotten this invite to this thing. I was listening to Lando. Like, he got asked like a really basic, like, do you listen to music to get yourself hyped up before the race? Like the kind of question that you guys as drivers get asked all the time. And it's the same, do you pee in the car type thing, right? Like, where I feel like a lot of times you would hear the answer from a NASCAR driver and they'd be like, yeah, we listen to music, or I have these superstitions. So he gets asked this question and I'm thinking, oh God, what a waste of your question, sir, Mr. Fan in the audience. And Lando like completely takes it into like this direction of like, when my trainer used to make me do this, and I found this really distracting, and now I listen to music because of this, and I don't like to do this routine. I like to try to keep myself calm. Like this whole like long, interesting answer. And I was like, wow, that was really, I could almost like write a story off that. Like that was super interesting. But they're not at the tracks. They're not in a rush. Like he's there for an hour, right? Like you're not going anywhere. When you take that setting away from, I think, NASCAR, not to go on this big rant here, but like, we don't really have that opportunity to hear from those guys. I feel like a lot of times. So I go back to, and sorry, like you can just cut me off anytime because now I'm on a
Keep
roll.
going.
But, like the media bullpens that we have, I appreciate NASCAR for trying to do what they can with those. But like during the playoffs, after the playoff drivers were eliminated, we no longer talked to those drivers. So like we didn't talk to Kyle Busch for like the last 7 weeks or something, right? Like
Yep.
Harvick on the weekend of the Forever 400, named after him, he did no media. We had no media. There was a Rodney Childers session, but like we didn't get to talk to Kevin Harvick on the weekend of the Forever 400 or whatever. Like these guys, they do media and fan appearances all the time. And they're F1 drivers are supposed to be like untouchable. Why can't the NASCAR drivers who are starving for star power and attention, why can they not be asked to do like a little bit more? I don't think that's that much of an ask.
Do you think it's a culture thing? Do you think it's a culture thing? Because I'm gonna agree with you here. I've actually been on this tirade of like, one, there's not enough content. Two, I've midweek content. Hell, this Money Lap Live, right? We're doing a 3-hour show, Landon, Cassill, and I. This is not even something that exists in our motorsport world right now, right? In any major capacity. It just doesn't happen right now because for whatever reason, we just there's 2 days of racing and then it's over, right? And there's not enough content. There's not enough times to learn about these drivers. And to your point, having done the pit reporting side, when we get past those rounds of the playoffs, those drivers that aren't in are out, right? And I've been there. I mean, I am there. Most weekends, when I get out of the car and I've finished 12th, I want to leave. Like, it's the culture, right? I want to just get out of there. But to your point, it's like, and then going ahead of time, we've just immediately gotten rid of all that because it's almost like there is no activation happening. There is no large sponsors that are coming in there like American Express and building a large 4-story building in the middle of Las Vegas to house people, right? That's not happening. So where, I guess my question is like, one, it's the culture. Two, if we don't have the partners paying for it and making it happen, then who does it fall on to make it happen, right? Does that make, you know what I'm saying? Because like you have the Williams fan zone, but obviously that's funded by the partners, the McLaren Jack Daniels deal, the AMG Mercedes, that's Mercedes. Who does it fall on that has to go, hey, we're going to put on this big event on Thursday in Vegas for the Cup playoff race or Daytona? I had a kid who came up to me at a signing I was doing in Daytona in the summer race. And he said, hey, this is the only thing. Do you know anything else going on? My deal later this evening got canceled. I'd love to go to more events. I didn't know what to tell him. I didn't know where to go, right? Like he had nothing. I was like, I don't know where to look for an event anymore. It's lacking. Is it culture or is it spend?
I think you've really, really seen NASCAR get hurt by that, right? Like the activations and the partnerships. they're not, they're, you remember you used to go on like J-Ski's like appearance page or whatever, and you would just, every driver would be going this, and you could say, oh, I could plan my whole thing. I could go all over here. I think that's definitely a big part of it. And sure, F1 has the partners that are invested in it. But if you go back 10 years ago, I mean, Parker, you know, this is a longtime loyal F1 fan. You weren't going to be able to pull this kind of thing off without the interest that there is now. Jordan Bianchi wrote this story, you know, this week about the old Caesars Palace Grand Prix, and Derek Daly had a quote in there about how back then the drivers would get changed in their room in Caesars Palace, change into their fire suit, walk down, get breakfast in their fire suit, and walk to the track in their fire suit, and nobody would know who they are or whatever, right? Because that was how F1 was viewed.
They lived like the commercials
in the States, right?
Yeah.
It's like, So obviously now these guys, I mean, these guys might be some of the biggest celebrities in town here in a whole week of celebrities. And how do you get to that rock star status? I mean, obviously Netflix did that, but I feel like a lot of these guys are invested in their own brands. I was talking to Landon about this for a while about, you know, Charles Leclerc and, you know, investing in his own YouTube channel and hiring race service to do a bunch of stuff for him and stuff. And it, you know, obviously it can't all fall on the drivers. It can't all fall on NASCAR. It can't all fall on the teams, but there's got to be some recognition of like, could we all do a little bit more? It doesn't have to be, let's dramatically change things and let's every single week we're going to do this and every, you know, but could people give a little bit more out of their schedule? I know everybody's busy. I know it's a long season as it is, but you know, these guys are doing 23 races all around the world. And they are in high demand and they're still making it work. So you would wonder what else could NASCAR do to have their drivers have a little bit more buy-in in that sense.
It's a really, really good point. And I agree.
I'm thinking like
it's buy-in. And who's it come on? You know, who's it come to? But I don't know.
I don't know. I'm thinking slowly about this right now. Like it's because it is something where it's just like, who is it really on? It's not on anybody specifically. It's on everybody. And maybe that's what Parker means by cultural, because when you start talking about the drivers individually, I think, gosh, one single NASCAR driver could just make the point to go to every race venue a day early and arrange public appearances for nothing, right? Like, you know, reach out to local businesses, local markets, make themselves available for hours, you know, at a time, and for no cost other than their time and the ability. And we all do that to some degree when we're asked to. You know, we have sponsors that ask us to do that. You know, we do it organically, whatever. But you know, Parker, next year, my challenge for you is to go to every track a day early.
We actually did that.
But then
we actually did that this year.
On the other side of things too is like, you know, obviously the teams could do more, and the partners we talked about that, you know, but then I think the real question where we started the conversation is, what could NASCAR do, right? What could NASCAR do to make this stuff happen? On your show, you know, on 12 Questions, Jeff, you and I talked a lot about like, well, NASCAR doesn't have a lot of ownership over the drivers right now, right? It's the teams that do. So NASCAR kind of can try to make things happen. But to make that big of a sweeping change to say every single week you have to come and, you know, all 40 drivers have to be available, would be a pretty big sweeping change. And it would also be, you have to really ask yourself, what are we doing, right? Like, are we going to get 40 drivers to come to the track? What are they doing there? Are they just going to stand around all day and talk to 2 or 3
play Monopoly?
members, or will there be 50 media members? Will there be 1,000 race fans? Like what's actually going to happen, right? The closest thing to this that I can think of is, you know, our media day in Daytona, or actually it used to be in Daytona, in Charlotte, where it's all the, you know, we take the pre-race photos and we speak to media. Well, I guess Daytona Day, there's 2 different media days. There's the one in Charlotte, which is NASCAR's sort of pre-production preseason production day, but then there's the Daytona media day, right? Every single driver in Daytona has to go through the media circuits. We go through local media, we go through the radio, we see you guys. What you're kind of suggesting, or what we're sort of talking about, is should we and could we be doing that way more often? And what does it actually look like to do something like that?
I don't even think it needs to be that big of a step, because even if you made the tiniest step right now, like you had a rotation of drivers and you said, all right, these 3 drivers who finished in the top 30 in Cup points last year are going to be required, like we'll alternate it. So like every 10 weeks.
We used to do that.
3. Yeah. What happened?
Yeah, remember you got
did it? So did it completely go away? Because we used to do the previews.
Advance. No, it was called an advance.
The advance.
the
That's what it
advance?
was called. The advance,
Yeah.
and it was
But
like
those were
a
weeks
month
in
before the
advance.
race.
Yeah, those
2
are gone.
Xfinity drivers and 2 Cup drivers, or something like that, would have to go to the race venue on a Wednesday.
Yeah. Those are gone. Yeah.
And so do they? Is there none of that anymore?
Mm-mm.
Gone.
I don't know why it
Gone.
stopped, but they're, yeah.
The chat out there live on YouTube, by the way, is similar ideas. Was saying basically 4 to 6 drivers should go there a couple days ahead. A couple people remember going to the Home Depot on a Thursday to get Joe Logano's autograph. Differences between IMSA and the NASCAR culture in terms of drivers hanging out versus going away. I do think it's a little bit cultural. I do think NASCAR, and what's going to happen, Jeff, this with the change in the TV and media rights. I do believe there's going to be more requested from drivers and that sort of stuff, and sort of more incentive as well for drivers to do things and for teams to invest in that. So I think everyone notices is a problem, right? 2-day weekends don't help. That's not a thing that's helping anything. But hey, final thoughts here, just on Vegas. What can everyone expect from you from the Athletic? You said a daily journal. Any other content they should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, our editors have asked us to view this as like the Super Bowl motorsports wise. So like we have our 2 F1 writers here, Luke Smith and Madeline Coleman, Jordan Bianchi, my coworkers here. They're all at the track. I'm going around the city. Then we took Tashawn Reed, who's our Raiders writer in Vegas, off the Raiders for a week. He's here doing Vegas stuff. We've got this other guy from the UK who I think is doing something on the fan experience that came over. So I think we have like 6 people here.
Wow.
And I should say that unlike the NASCAR stories, it's a different model. So like when I'm talking about, read my 12 questions or whatever, it's behind a paywall, right? Usually on the Athletic. But the F1 coverage exists because it's funded by advertising. It's not funded by the subscriptions. So I believe that all of the F1 stories are free, like unlocked. So we're just trying to blanket it, just do as much as we can. So I don't know where the week's going to take me. I'm still, again, if anybody's out there in the chat wants to shoot me some invite to some party, I'll beg. I mean, it's fine. Like what else, but I mean, I might be doing things as random as like trying to, take a cab ride or something like during qualifying or whatever, and seeing how long it takes me to get around the city or something. I don't know, like whatever it's going to be. So it could be good or bad. I feel like it's a positive first impression for me, but I don't know if it's going to end up that way. So I'll definitely have my daily recaps, and we'll just see how it goes.
All right, we have
Cool.
we have a question of the day for every guest that's come on here. Who's going to finish second in the Las Vegas GP?
This is a really good question. This is a really, really good question. I think so. I did an interview last night with David Coulthard, and I was like, is the tire talk overblown? Like, it's going to be cold, and Pirelli's never had to deal with maybe temperatures quite like this in some ways. And he's like, no, it's not overblown, because he said, take Haas F1 team, for example, right? Haas, a lot of times they'll qualify well, and then as soon as the race starts, they completely fall off a cliff because their car doesn't have the performance once the tires heat up, the tires drop. Like they can't, their tires won't last, right? But like these temperatures, it's going to be more about trying to keep the heat in your tires, and rather than like wearing them out because they got they got overcooked or whatever, right? So that you would think could really change the balance of how this race goes. Plus, if the tires are that cold and you're having people make mistakes, there's going to be safety cars. There's going to be contenders taking themselves out. I don't think it's going to be the Max Red Bull runaway that we've seen. I mean, I think there's a lot of elements here that could add up to something different. So my second place driver will be Lando because he just keeps finishing second. It feels like a lot.
That's a perfect way to end it,
Wait,
man.
so all of that to just come back and say that it's going to be Max probably winning and Lando finishing second.
No, I think that it's going to be like a Ferrari that wins, like a Charles or a Carlos.
Okay.
And I think like McLaren will maybe be in contention, but he won't quite get it done. And I think I'm going to say like Max is wrecked out or something, like something happens to Max where it's like, what is happening? Oh my God, Las Vegas is crazy. One of those things.
Jeff is rooting for chaos. His money
I
is
love
on
it.
chaos in Vegas.
Man on the ground from The Athletic, Jeff Gluck. Thank you for coming here on the Money Lap Live, man. You made this a great show. We thank you so much for that. Have a great weekend, and we look forward to all the content.
Yeah, sorry if I realized how much time I just took of your show here.
No,
Sorry
it's
about
awesome.
that if I rambled too
We
much, but-
appreciate it. It's all good.
Okay,
It's all
cool.
good.
No, we loved it. Thank you.
Thanks for coming
Thanks
on,
to you guys.
buddy.
Congrats on this. This looks really cool. This is I was trying to pop in on some of your other guests. It's really, I'm impressed with this. So yeah,
Appreciate
great
it.
stuff. Keep going.
Appreciate
Means
it,
a lot to us and our production team. We've barely screwed up at all throughout this whole thing. We've only got a couple minutes left, Landon. I just wanted to rip through a couple things real fast. So we didn't dive into it, but of course, Chevy announced that they are planning to have a power unit for F1 in 2028, which obviously is tied to Andretti and their F1 bid. So that's happened. Leah Block, who's Ken Block's daughter, signed with Williams to race in the F1 Academy Series, which is pretty cool. See a young American, obviously with a famous father, that is going to be in the junior ranks. And then I do want to show this video. I want to end this episode of the Money Lap with this video from a Spanish F4 race where a Red Bull Junior by the name of Enzo Delaney. Now look at this block. Always right. So for the podcast viewers, basically it's at Barcelona in the F4 race. The start, a driver shoves another driver through the pit lane exit onto the grass and then comes back on the track. That driver that did that ignored their drive time penalty and a black flag for the whole rest of the race. So I just think there's no other way to sum up some of our discussions about hard racing and where things are going than this situation.
Is that the truck series?
F4.
I'm sorry,
This
is
is
it the truck
basically-
series?
Yeah, no, it is. It's the truck series of Spain, called Formula 4. And yeah, this is exactly what you can expect. To your point, where is this coming from? I think this is multifold. I think you have the higher ranks, the amount of content, amount of drivers making moves like this at the highest levels that we've done and seen. That filters down sim racing. There's no doubt in my mind, sim racing, and it's how realistic it is, but the moves you can make like that make it that this seems fair. And the competitiveness, it's becoming just incredibly competitive throughout all these series where the cars are specs cars. It's super close. You can't, you're trying to find every ounce of performance. And so you're going to go and push someone in the grass, I guess. I'm not condoning it, but is what it is. We have to answer our question of the day, Landon. Who is your second place finisher in the Las Vegas GP?
Oh, man. I'm going to say, you know what? Everybody's got me. I'm going to make the boldest one of the year because everybody's got me on with this chaos or whatever. So I'm going to drink the chaos Kool-Aid and say Max Verstappen.
That was mine. I was literally sitting here the whole time to say Max Verstappen.
Oh, did I just take it from you?
Yeah, the chaos is going to be nuts. I was like, it's not even going to be chaos. It's just going to be something that's going to happen because it's so cold, because there's no grip. You can't just run F1 cars on a track like this with no preparation in the racetrack. That's going to be a tough thing. for whatever reason, he's going to finish second. And they'll be like,
okay, so
greatest race
here's I'm
in
rooting
the
for
history.
chaos.
Yep.
I'm rooting for chaos, but here's the reality. This chaos, I disagree with David Coulthard. I disagree with Jeff. I think the chaos is overblown unless they cancel the race. That might, which I don't know if that's on the table or not. I think the chaos is overblown. They will figure out these tires. They'll figure out the cars, and Red Bull will probably win.
All right.
If it truly is chaotic, if there's a pile up on the start of the race, if there's multiple safety cars, a bunch of opportunities like that, then yeah, I'm gonna say Max Verstappen P2. And it would be cool if Lando got his win this weekend. That would be a great venue for that.
Lando Norris, that's your winner. That's who we're picking. So here on the Money Lap Live, my man, just over 3 hours, 1 3-minute break. What an adventure. What a journey we've been on here. This has been something I've tried to do for almost a decade now. And we have finally done it. And I don't know if we really had many hiccups other than a couple audio issues, but I'm impressed, my man. We're going to do this again, though. This means for 4 more weeks, we're going to do the Money Lap Live Wednesdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern time. If you're listening to podcasts, hopefully we did a good job describing some of the visuals that we had on this. We're going to keep trying to add visuals. We'll take all your comments, suggestions, guest suggestions, throw it our way, and go subscribe to the Money Lap at themoneylap.com. Thank you so much for watching. I saw the viewership only go up, which means there's a couple more people than just our moms watching. Thank you. Talk to you later.